Climate change and agriculture, a synergy. Table of content. Introduction. Chapter 1, Understanding Climate Change. Chapter 2, The Science of Agriculture. Chapter 3, Climate Change Impacts on Agriculture. Chapter 4, Regional Case Studies. Chapter 5, Adaptation Strategies in Agriculture. Chapter 6, Mitigation in Agricultural Systems. Chapter 7, Policy, Governance and Global Cooperation. Chapter 8, Technology and Innovation in Climate-Resilient Agriculture. Chapter 9, Socioeconomic Impacts and Equity Considerations. Chapter 10, The Future of Sustainable Agriculture. Chapter 11, Policy, Governance and Global Collaboration in Climate-Smart Agriculture. Chapter 12, Education, Awareness and Capacity Building for Climate-Smart Agriculture. Chapter 13, Future Directions and Innovations in Climate-Smart Agriculture. Chapter 14, Policy Frameworks and Governance for Climate-Smart Agriculture. Chapter 15, Community Involvement and Stakeholder Engagement in Climate-Smart Agriculture. Epilogue, Building a Resilient and Sustainable Agricultural Future. Introduction. To forget how to dig the earth and to tend the soil is to forget ourselves. Mahatma Gandhi. Climate change is no longer a distant concern. It is a present reality shaping our environment, economies, and daily lives. One of the most deeply affected sectors is agriculture, the cornerstone of human civilization and survival. From smallholder farms in sub-Saharan Africa to industrial operations in North America, no aspect of farming is immune to the growing instability of Earth's climate. Agriculture and climate are intricately linked. Plants need predictable weather, water, and temperature conditions to grow. Farmers depend on seasonal cycles and soil health to plan their work and feed their communities. Yet, as greenhouse gas emissions alter atmospheric patterns, this delicate balance is being disrupted. Rising temperatures scorch fields, erratic rainfall floods crops or leaves them parched, and storms destroy entire harvests overnight. At the same time, agriculture itself contributes significantly to climate change through emissions from livestock, deforestation for farmland, and the use of synthetic fertilizers. This book explores the dynamic and often uneasy relationship between climate change and agriculture. It investigates how a changing climate affects farming practices, food production, and global food security. It also looks at how agriculture can transform itself, not just to survive, but to become part of the solution to climate change. Innovations in technology, shifts in policy, and the resurgence of traditional and indigenous knowledge all offer pathways forward. But the stakes are high. With the global population expected to surpass 9 billion by 2050, we face the immense challenge of feeding more people with fewer natural resources. At the same time, we must reduce agriculture's environmental footprint and build resilience to climate shocks that are becoming more frequent and severe. This book is written for students, farmers, policymakers, environmentalists, and concerned citizens alike. Whether you're looking to understand the science behind these global shifts or seeking practical solutions for sustainable agriculture, this journey will equip you with knowledge and insight. By understanding the problem, we can better shape the path forward toward a resilient, sustainable food system that supports both people and the planet. Chapter 1, Understanding Climate Change. Climate change is one of the most significant challenges facing humanity in the 21st century. It affects every continent, ocean, and ecosystem, and its ripple effects are deeply entwined with agriculture, food systems, and global health. Before we can explore its impact on agriculture, it's essential to understand what climate change is, what causes it, and how it manifests around the world. What is climate change? Climate change refers to long-term shifts in temperatures and weather patterns. While these changes can occur naturally through processes like volcanic eruptions or solar cycles, the current trend of rapid global warming is overwhelmingly driven by human activity, particularly since the Industrial Revolution in the late 1700s. Unlike weather, which can change daily, Climate describes the average weather conditions over decades. Climate change involves not just rising temperatures but also altered rainfall patterns, stronger storms, prolonged droughts, rising sea levels, and shifting seasons. The greenhouse effect. Central to climate change is the greenhouse effect. This natural process traps some of the sun's energy in the Earth's atmosphere, making the planet warm enough to support life. Greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide, methane, carbon tetrahydride, nitrous oxide, dinitrogen monoxide, and water vapor absorb infrared radiation and prevent heat from escaping into space. However, human activities have greatly intensified this effect. By burning fossil fuels, coal, oil, and natural gas, clearing forests, and engaging in industrial agriculture, we've dramatically increased the concentration of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. This has led to a warmer Earth, with cascading consequences for all forms of life. Major greenhouse gases and their sources. Carbon dioxide, the most significant long-lived greenhouse gas. Carbon dioxide is released primarily through burning fossil fuels, deforestation, and land use changes. Methane, carbon tetrahydride. Though shorter-lived than carbon dioxide, methane is over 25 times more potent at trapping heat. Major sources include livestock digestion, especially cattle, rice paddies, and fossil fuel extraction. Nitrous oxide, dinitrogen monoxide. Released from the use of nitrogen-based fertilizers, biomass burning, and industrial processes, dinitrogen monoxide is nearly 300 times more potent than carbon dioxide in terms of warming potential. Human activities driving climate change. Energy production. Power plants, transportation, and manufacturing are major emitters of greenhouse gases. Deforestation. Trees absorb carbon dioxide, and when forests are cleared for timber or farmland, that carbon is released. Agriculture. Livestock emit methane, and fertilizer use produces nitrous oxide. Unsustainable farming also contributes to land degradation and emissions. Waste management. Decomposing organic waste in landfills produces methane, while poor sewage treatment releases both methane and nitrous oxide. Observable effects of climate change. The impacts of climate change are already visible and measurable. Global temperature rise. Average global temperatures have increased by approximately 1.1 degrees Celsius since pre-industrial times. Melting ice and rising seas. Glaciers and polar ice caps are shrinking, contributing to sea level rise that threatens coastal cities and ecosystems. Extreme weather. Hurricanes, floods, wildfires, and heat waves are becoming more intense and frequent. Ecosystem disruption. Species are migrating, coral reefs are bleaching, and biodiversity is declining. Projected future trends. If greenhouse gas emissions continue unabated, climate models predict a temperature rise of 2.5 to 4.5 degrees Celsius or more by 2100. More frequent and intense droughts in some regions. Shifts in rainfall, making dry areas drier and wet areas wetter. Reduced freshwater availability, and increased conflict over resources. Greater risks to human health, food production, and economies. Global efforts to address climate change. The international community has recognized the urgency of acting on climate change. Key milestones include the Kyoto Protocol, 1997, the first major global agreement to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The Paris Agreement, 2015. Nearly every nation committed to limiting warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius, ideally 1.5 degrees Celsius. COP conferences. Annual UN climate summits where nations negotiate climate policies and funding for adaptation and mitigation. Yet despite these agreements, emissions continue to rise. The gap between promises and action remains large. Why understanding climate change matters for agriculture. Agriculture is both a victim and a contributor to climate change. Farmers worldwide are already facing shifting growing seasons, unpredictable rainfall, new pests, and crop failures. At the same time, farming practices, especially in large-scale industrial agriculture, are a major source of emissions. Understanding climate change is not just a scientific endeavor. It is essential for adapting our food systems, protecting rural livelihoods, and ensuring a sustainable future. By grasping the causes and consequences of climate change, we lay the groundwork for exploring its direct effects on agriculture in the chapters to come. Chapter 2: The Science of Agriculture. Agriculture is the foundation of human civilization. From the earliest days of subsistence farming to today's global food systems, our ability to grow crops and raise livestock has determined the health, wealth, and stability of societies. Yet beneath this complex web of tools, machines, and markets lies a surprisingly simple truth: all agriculture depends on nature. To understand how climate change affects agriculture, we must first understand how agriculture works, its ecological underpinnings, biological processes, and its dependence on stable environmental conditions. What is agriculture? At its core, agriculture is the cultivation of plants and the rearing of animals for human use, primarily food but also fiber, like cotton and wool, fuel, like bioethanol and other products. It includes crop farming, growing food crops e.g. wheat, rice, maize, cash crops e.g. coffee, cotton, and horticultural crops e.g. fruits, vegetables. Animal husbandry, raising livestock such as cattle, sheep, pigs, poultry, and fish. Agroforestry, integrating trees with crops and/or animals. Aquaculture, farming aquatic organisms like fish, shellfish, and seaweed. The agricultural ecosystem. Agriculture functions within a larger ecological system. This system involves a balance of sunlight, water, nutrients, and biological interactions. Disruptions to one part of the system can cascade through the entire farm or region. Key components include soil, a living dynamic mixture of minerals, organic matter, water, and air. Healthy soil supports plant growth, retains moisture, and stores carbon. Water, crops and livestock need consistent water supply through rainfall or irrigation. Climate, temperature, humidity, sunlight, and seasonal variation influence plant development and yield. Biodiversity, pollinators like bees, decomposers like earthworms, and predators that control pests are essential to maintaining productivity. Genetics, the genetic makeup of crops and livestock determines their resistance to disease, efficiency, and resilience. Traditional versus modern agriculture. Traditional agriculture. Often practiced in developing regions, traditional agriculture relies on local knowledge, diverse cropping systems, and minimal external inputs. Examples include mixed cropping and intercropping, crop rotation and fallowing, use of manure and compost. Traditional systems are typically low in productivity, but high in sustainability and biodiversity. They are often more adaptable to changing environmental conditions. Modern industrial agriculture. Since the mid-20th century, agriculture has undergone a transformation. Mechanization, tractors, harvesters, and other machinery. Chemical inputs, synthetic fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides. Monoculture, planting large areas with a single crop. Irrigation, and genetic modification. This green revolution increased food production dramatically, but also introduced challenges. Soil degradation and erosion. Water overuse and pollution. Loss of biodiversity. Increased reliance on fossil fuels and chemicals. The crop life cycle and environmental needs. All crops follow a general life cycle: germination, vegetative growth, flowering, pollination, fruiting, and harvesting. Each stage has specific climate and resource needs. Temperature affects the speed of plant development. Rainfall and humidity affect germination, disease pressure, and fruit quality. Sunlight is essential for photosynthesis. Frost or drought at the wrong time can devastate yields. Even small changes in temperature or timing of rainfall can shift the viability of entire crops in a region. Livestock systems and environmental conditions. Animals are sensitive to heat stress, water availability, and disease, many of which are influenced by climate. Productivity declines when animals are too hot or undernourished, and new pathogens may emerge in changing conditions. Feed availability is also tied to crop production. Livestock systems include pastoral systems, grazing animals on natural or semi-natural pastures. Mixed systems, combining crops and livestock, often with manure used as fertilizer. Industrial systems, high-density feedlot-based production relying on grain-based feed and high inputs. Each system has different vulnerabilities and environmental impacts. Dependency on predictable climate patterns. Agriculture evolved around relatively stable climate patterns. Farmers planned sowing, harvesting, and breeding based on expected seasons. Crops like wheat depend on winter cold to trigger flowering. Others need predictable monsoon rains. Climate disruptions, such as unexpected frost, heat waves during pollination, or shifting rainy seasons, can drastically affect timing, yields, and food security. Soil health and nutrient cycling. Healthy soils are vital for agriculture. They anchor roots and store water. They host beneficial organisms like bacteria and fungi. They recycle nutrients like nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Unsustainable practices, e.g., overtilling, chemical overuse, degrade soil structure and fertility. Climate change compounds this by increasing erosion, reducing organic matter, and altering microbial communities. Agriculture's feedback loop with the environment. Agriculture doesn't just depend on the environment, it also changes it. Clearing forests for farmland reduces biodiversity and releases carbon. Fertilizer runoff causes water pollution and dead zones in lakes and oceans. Methane from livestock contributes significantly to global warming. This feedback loop means that agriculture is both shaped by and shaping the climate. As such, any attempt to make agriculture sustainable must treat it as an ecological system, not just a production engine. Chapter 3: Climate Change Impacts on Agriculture. Climate change is not just a future threat. Its effects are already being felt across farms, fields, and food systems around the world. Farmers are on the front lines of a changing planet, experiencing firsthand how shifts in climate affect what they can grow, when they can grow it, and how much they can harvest. In this chapter, we examine the main ways climate change is disrupting agriculture: rising temperatures, shifting precipitation patterns, more frequent extreme weather, and long-term environmental degradation. These changes threaten global food security, rural livelihoods, and the very systems that sustain life. Rising temperatures. Average global temperatures have risen by about 1.1 degrees Celsius since pre-industrial times, and they continue to climb. While this may sound small, agriculture is highly sensitive to even slight temperature changes. Impact on crops. Heat stress reduces crop yields by damaging plant tissues, especially during critical periods like flowering and grain filling. Some crops, such as wheat and maize, are especially vulnerable to high temperatures during pollination, leading to poor seed development. Warmer temperatures can accelerate crop maturation, shortening growing seasons and reducing yields. Chilling requirements for certain fruits, like apples and cherries, may not be met in warmer winters, affecting flowering and fruiting. Impact on livestock. Livestock suffer from heat stress, leading to reduced feed intake, lower milk and meat production, and decreased fertility. Increased temperatures also raise the risk of heat-related illnesses and death, especially in intensive production systems. Animals require more water to regulate their body temperature, increasing competition for limited water resources. 2. Altered precipitation patterns. Climate change affects where, when, and how much it rains. In many regions, rainfall has become more erratic, with longer dry spells punctuated by intense storms. Droughts. Prolonged droughts reduce soil moisture, limit crop growth, and cause widespread crop failure. Irrigation-dependent systems are vulnerable if water supplies run dry or are diverted for other uses. Drought reduces forage for livestock and contributes to overgrazing and land degradation. Floods. Heavy rains can waterlog soils, suffocating plant roots and promoting disease. Flooding can wash away topsoil, fertilizers, and young plants. It also increases the spread of livestock diseases, especially in poorly drained or crowded conditions. Seasonal shifts. In places dependent on monsoons, like South Asia, shifts in the onset and duration of rainy seasons cause uncertainty and mismatches between crop cycles and rainfall. Some regions experience too much rain at once, while others see extended dry seasons. 3. Extreme weather events. Climate change increases the frequency and severity of extreme weather events, many of which directly impact agriculture. Heatwaves scorch crops, dry out soils, and increase evaporation rates. Storms and hurricanes flatten fields, destroy infrastructure, and lead to massive crop and livestock losses. Wildfires fueled by drought and heat destroy pastures, kill animals, and pollute air and water supplies. Hailstorms and frosts arriving at unexpected times can damage fruit and vegetable crops. Extreme events are particularly devastating because they are often sudden, widespread, and difficult to prepare for, especially for small-scale farmers with limited resources. 4. Soil degradation and erosion. Soil is the foundation of agriculture. But climate change accelerates its degradation in several ways. Intense rainfall increases soil erosion, washing away fertile topsoil and nutrients. Drought causes soils to dry out and harden, reducing fertility and biological activity. Temperature extremes disturb microbial life, affecting nutrient cycling and plant health. Salinization from rising sea levels or improper irrigation renders soils unproductive. Soil loss and degradation mean that farmers must use more inputs, fertilizers, irrigation, machinery, to maintain productivity, which can further harm the environment and trap them in a costly cycle. 5. Pests and diseases. Warmer temperatures and changing rainfall patterns are altering the distribution and life cycle of pests, weeds, and diseases. Insects like locusts and aphids are expanding into new regions and reproducing faster. Fungal and bacterial diseases thrive in warmer, wetter conditions, threatening staple crops like wheat, rice, and maize. Livestock diseases such as tick-borne fevers and parasitic infections are also spreading to new areas. Farmers must spend more on pest control, and in many cases, available pesticides or treatments are ineffective or unavailable. 6. Crop viability and shifting growing zones. Climate change is redrawing agricultural maps. Crops once well suited to a region may no longer thrive there, while new opportunities emerge elsewhere. Coffee and cacao, for example, are retreating to higher elevations due to heat stress. Maize and wheat are losing viability in parts of sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia. Wine grapes, sensitive to climate, are already shifting to new regions in Europe and North America. But relocating agriculture is not always possible. Soil types, infrastructure, market access, and social systems can limit adaptation. 7. Economic and social impacts. Climate-related disruptions in agriculture have ripple effects across economies and societies. Food price volatility from supply shocks affects consumers and food security. Rural poverty intensifies as smallholder farmers lose crops or income. Migration and conflict may increase as people are forced to abandon degraded land or compete for water and food resources. Women, indigenous peoples, and marginalized communities often bear the greatest burden, with fewer resources to adapt or recover. A system under stress. The cumulative effect of all these challenges is a global agricultural system under increasing stress. Many regions now face the dual pressures of producing more food for growing populations, while coping with declining natural resources and greater climate uncertainty. But agriculture is not only a victim, it's also a powerful player in shaping our climate future. In the next chapters, we'll examine real-world case studies and begin exploring how farmers, scientists, and communities are working to adapt. Chapter 4. Regional Case Studies. Climate change does not affect all regions equally. Geography, development status, natural resources, and agricultural systems vary widely across the globe, shaping how communities experience and respond to climate impacts. In this chapter, we explore how climate change is affecting agriculture in different parts of the world, offering insights into the diversity of challenges and the solutions being tried on the ground. 1. Sub-Saharan Africa, Drought and Food Insecurity. Overview. Sub-Saharan Africa is among the regions most vulnerable to climate change, despite contributing the least to global greenhouse gas emissions. Over 60% of the population depends on rain-fed agriculture, making it highly sensitive to rainfall variability and drought. Climate challenges. Increased frequency of droughts and delayed or erratic rainy seasons. Rising temperatures reduce soil moisture and increase evapotranspiration. Declining yields in maize, millet, sorghum, and legumes. Impacts. Reduced food production and rising hunger. Livestock losses in arid regions due to lack of grazing and water. Migration of pastoralists and conflict over shrinking natural resources. Responses. Drought-tolerant crop varieties, e.g. heat-resistant maize. Agroforestry practices to improve soil health and reduce erosion. Water harvesting and small-scale irrigation. Climate-smart agriculture initiatives led by NGOs and regional governments. 2. South Asia, monsoon disruption and flooding. Overview. South Asia, home to nearly 2 billion people, is one of the most agriculturally productive regions in the world. The region relies heavily on the monsoon, a seasonal rainfall system vital for crops like rice, wheat, sugarcane, and cotton. Climate challenges. Shifts in the timing and intensity of monsoons. Increasing frequency of floods and cyclones. Rising sea levels threaten low-lying agricultural land, especially in Bangladesh. Impacts. Crop failure due to unpredictable rains or excessive flooding. Soil salinity in coastal areas reduces fertility. Heat waves cause livestock mortality and lower dairy yields. Responses. Government-led crop insurance schemes to buffer income loss. Promotion of climate-resilient rice varieties. Community-based early warning systems and disaster preparedness. Transition to system of rice intensification, SRI, to use less water. 3. Latin America, coffee, cattle, and deforestation. Overview. Latin America includes a range of climates and agricultural systems, from smallholder coffee farms in the Andes to large cattle ranches in Brazil and soy plantations in Argentina. Climate change and land use practices are tightly intertwined. Climate challenges. Higher temperatures affect coffee and cocoa quality and production. Increased drought risk in the Amazon and northeastern Brazil. Continued deforestation exacerbates climate feedback loops. Impacts. Coffee farmers moving production to higher elevations. Soil degradation and pasture loss from overgrazing and heat stress. Expansion of farming into forested areas drives emissions and biodiversity loss. Responses. Introduction of shade-grown coffee systems. Payments for ecosystem services to incentivize forest conservation. Use of integrated crop livestock forestry systems in Brazil. Agroecology and organic farming gaining traction among smallholders. 4. North America, heat waves and megadroughts. Overview. North America's agriculture is highly productive and industrialized, especially in the U.S. and Canada. The region grows major global exports like corn, soybeans, wheat, fruits, and livestock. Climate challenges. More frequent and intense heat waves across the Midwest and West. Prolonged megadroughts in the western U.S. Wildfires damaging crops, livestock, and infrastructure. Impacts. Increased irrigation demand and groundwater depletion. Crop failures from heat spikes during critical growth periods. Supply chain disruptions and rising food prices. Responses. Shift toward precision agriculture to optimize water and fertilizer use. Investment in drought-resilient crops and crop diversification. Expansion of cover cropping and no-till practices. Public-private partnerships on climate-smart ag research. 5. Europe, mixed outcomes and adaptation planning. Overview. Europe has seen a mix of climate effects, with some regions experiencing benefits, e.g., longer growing seasons in the north, and others facing major challenges, e.g., southern Europe's heat and water stress. Climate challenges. Severe droughts in Spain, Italy, and Greece. Unseasonal frosts damaging vineyards and orchards. Increased invasive species and pests. Impacts. Reduced olive and grape yields in Mediterranean countries. Economic losses in fruit and vegetable production. Shift in viable crop types and planting calendars. Responses. EU funding for climate adaptation research and infrastructure. Promotion of agroecology and organic farming. Investment in irrigation efficiency and drought forecasting. Expansion of insurance and risk management tools. 6. Small island developing states SIDS, sea level rise and cyclones. Overview. Small island nations, such as those in the Pacific and Caribbean, face existential threats from climate change. Agriculture here is small-scale, often for local consumption, and highly vulnerable. Climate challenges. Rising sea levels, leading to saltwater intrusion and land loss. Increased cyclone frequency and intensity. Disruption of rainfall and freshwater availability. Impacts. Loss of arable land and freshwater for irrigation. Devastated crops and livestock from cyclones. Increased food imports and food insecurity. Responses. Construction of seawalls and raised bed farming systems. Introduction of salt-tolerant crops like taro and cassava. Support for climate-resilient home gardens. Regional collaboration and advocacy for climate finance. Conclusion: local solutions, global relevance. These case studies illustrate that while climate change presents a global challenge, its impacts and the responses are deeply local. Geography, culture, and capacity shape how farmers experience climate risk and what tools they can access to adapt. As we move forward, understanding these regional differences will be crucial for designing inclusive, effective global solutions. The next chapter will explore how science, innovation, and technology are being mobilized to help agriculture adapt and thrive in a changing world. Chapter 5. Adaptation Strategies in Agriculture. Agriculture is inherently adaptable. For thousands of years, farmers have adjusted to floods, droughts, pests, and shifting seasons. But the pace and scale of modern climate change present new challenges, more rapid, more extreme, and more widespread than ever before. In this chapter, we explore how agricultural communities around the world are adapting to climate change using a combination of traditional knowledge, scientific innovation, and forward-thinking policies. 1. Climate-smart agriculture, CSA. Climate-smart agriculture is an integrated approach promoted by organizations like the FAO, to increase agricultural productivity sustainably, enhance resilience, adaptation, reduce or remove greenhouse gas emissions, mitigation, and enhance national food security and development goals. Key components of CSA include improved crop varieties, e.g., drought-tolerant, heat-resistant, pest-resistant, efficient resource use, e.g., water-saving irrigation, integrated farming systems that combine crops, livestock, and trees, risk management tools such as weather insurance. CSA is not a one-size-fits-all model. It must be tailored to local environments, cultural practices, and socioeconomic conditions. 2. Crop and livestock diversification. Diversification reduces dependency on a single crop or animal species, improving resilience when weather or market conditions fluctuate. Crop diversification. Farmers plant a variety of species or rotate crops to reduce risk. Intercropping systems, e.g. maize and beans, optimize land use and increase soil fertility. Livestock diversification. Mixing species, e.g. cattle, goats, chickens, can reduce losses from disease or drought. Incorporating breeds more suited to hotter, drier climates improves survivability. Diversification supports soil health, reduces pest outbreaks, and provides a buffer against unpredictable conditions. 3. Improved water management. Water is a critical factor in adaptation. As rainfall becomes less predictable and droughts more frequent, managing water wisely is vital. Adaptation strategies include drip irrigation and micro-sprinklers to reduce water waste. Rainwater harvesting using tanks, ponds, or swales. Scheduling irrigation based on soil moisture sensors or weather forecasts. Contour bunds and terracing to retain water in hilly or dryland regions. In regions where irrigation isn't possible, developing dryland farming practices and planting short-duration or drought-tolerant crops helps reduce reliance on rainfall. 4. Soil conservation and regenerative practices. Healthy soils are more resilient to drought, erosion, and extreme temperatures. Improving soil health is a core strategy in climate adaptation. Key practices include conservation tillage or no-till farming to reduce erosion and increase moisture retention. Cover cropping to prevent bare soil and improve organic matter. Composting and organic inputs to boost microbial activity and fertility. Agroforestry, where trees are integrated into farmland to provide shade, reduce wind damage, and enrich soil. These techniques not only help crops survive climate shocks, but also sequester carbon, offering mitigation benefits. 5. Use of climate-resilient crops and breeds. Crop breeding and biotechnology are being used to develop varieties better suited to the new climate reality. Examples of climate-resilient crops: drought-resistant maize, pearl millet, sorghum. Salt-tolerant rice and barley. Heat-tolerant tomatoes and pulses. Genetically modified crops with enhanced tolerance or pest resistance. In livestock, indigenous breeds often outperform imported varieties under stress due to their local adaptation. Research institutions and seed banks are critical for conserving genetic diversity and developing future-ready varieties. 6. Early warning systems and climate information services. Access to timely, accurate climate information can help farmers make better decisions. Early warning systems provide seasonal forecasts for planting and harvesting, drought and flood alerts, pest outbreak warnings. In many countries, climate services are being tailored to farmers through SMS messages, radio bulletins, community weather centers. When combined with training, these tools enhance preparedness and reduce losses. 7. Insurance and financial tools. Climate risk often translates to financial risk. Crop and livestock insurance help farmers recover from losses and reduce the pressure to sell assets or abandon their land. Insurance products include index-based insurance, where payouts are triggered by weather data, e.g. rainfall levels, rather than farm visits. Micro-insurance for smallholder farmers. Bundled services that combine insurance with seeds, credit, and advice. Access to climate finance, such as adaptation funds and low-interest loans, is also vital to help farmers invest in resilient technologies. 8. Knowledge sharing and extension services. Adaptation is accelerated when farmers have access to information, training, and peer support. Key approaches. Farmer field schools that demonstrate adaptive techniques in real conditions. Participatory research that involves farmers in testing innovations. Mobile apps and digital platforms providing weather data, market prices, and best practices. Involving local communities, especially women and indigenous groups, ensures that adaptation strategies are socially and culturally appropriate. 9. Policy and institutional support. Governments play a central role in scaling up adaptation through supportive agricultural policies that promote resilience over short-term yields. Public investment in infrastructure, e.g., irrigation canals, storage facilities. Incentives for sustainable land use and conservation practices. Integration of climate adaptation into national development plans. Strong institutions ensure that adaptation reaches the most vulnerable and aligns with national and international goals. 10. Empowering women and marginalized farmers. Women and marginalized farmers often face the greatest climate risks, but have the fewest resources to adapt. Strategies to support equity in adaptation include ensuring access to land, credit, and extension services, involving women in climate planning and decision-making, supporting women-led cooperatives and agricultural businesses. Adaptation that ignores gender and social dynamics risks reinforcing inequality and weakening resilience. Conclusion: adaptation is possible and urgent. The good news is that solutions exist. Around the world, farmers are already adapting, experimenting with new crops, rebuilding soil, conserving water, and reorganizing their systems for a changing future. But adaptation takes time, resources, and coordination. It requires the support of scientists, policymakers, investors, and communities working together. As the climate continues to change, the difference between resilience and crisis will come down to how quickly and equitably we act. Chapter 6: Mitigation in Agricultural Systems. While adaptation helps agriculture cope with climate change, mitigation addresses its root cause, greenhouse gas (GHG) emissions. Agriculture is both a victim and a contributor to climate change, responsible for around 20 to 30% of global greenhouse gas emissions, including carbon dioxide, methane, carbon tetrahydride, and nitrous oxide, D-nitrogen monoxide. This chapter explores how agriculture can shift from being a major emitter to a powerful climate solution through practices that reduce emissions, enhance carbon sinks, and improve efficiency without sacrificing food security. 1. Sources of agricultural greenhouse gas emissions. To mitigate emissions, we must first understand where they come from. Carbon dioxide, carbon dioxide. Emitted from deforestation, land use change, and fossil fuel use in farm operations. Soil carbon loss from tillage, overgrazing, or poor land management. Methane, carbon tetrahydride. Released from enteric fermentation in ruminants, e.g. cattle. Produced during manure decomposition and rice paddy flooding under anaerobic conditions. Nitrous oxide, D-nitrogen monoxide. Emitted from synthetic and organic fertilizers and manure applied to soils. A potent greenhouse gas, 300 times more powerful than carbon dioxide over a 100-year period. Mitigation focuses on reducing these emissions and enhancing carbon sequestration in soils and vegetation. 2. Conservation agriculture and soil carbon sequestration. Soils are one of the largest carbon reservoirs on Earth. Restoring and protecting soil health can lock carbon away for decades or even centuries. Key practices include no-till or reduced tillage, which limits soil disturbance and carbon loss. Cover cropping and crop rotation to increase organic matter. Composting and organic amendments that boost microbial life and soil structure. Agroforestry systems, which integrate perennial vegetation into farms. Soil carbon sequestration has the added benefit of improving fertility, water retention, and crop yields, supporting both mitigation and adaptation. 3. Agroforestry and tree-based farming. Trees are powerful carbon sinks. Integrating them into farms provides multiple environmental benefits. Agroforestry options. Alley cropping, growing crops between rows of trees. Silvopasture, combining trees with livestock grazing. Windbreaks and shelter belts, reducing erosion and enhancing microclimates. Agroforestry not only sequesters carbon dioxide, but also provides fruits, timber, fodder, and fuel, diversifying income and increasing resilience. 4. Livestock emissions reduction. Livestock are a major source of agricultural emissions, especially methane. Mitigation in this sector focuses on feed, breeding, and manure management. Strategies. Improved feed quality reduces fermentation and methane output. Feed additives such as fats, tannins, or red seaweed to suppress methane. Selective breeding for animals with higher productivity and lower emissions. Manure management using anaerobic digesters to capture methane as biogas. Switching to grazing management systems and integrating livestock with crops can also reduce environmental impact. 5. Rice cultivation improvements. Flooded rice paddies emit significant methane. Modifying water and soil management can substantially reduce emissions. Mitigation techniques. Alternate wetting and drying, AWD, controlled irrigation rather than continuous flooding. Mid-season drainage, allowing fields to dry briefly lowers anaerobic conditions. Using improved rice varieties with shorter growing cycles. Balanced fertilization avoids excessive nitrogen and suppresses D-nitrogen monoxide emissions. These changes often increase efficiency and reduce water use, offering co-benefits. 6. Precision agriculture and technology. Using technology to apply water, fertilizer, and pesticides more precisely reduces emissions from overuse and inefficiency. Examples: GPS-guided equipment for targeted inputs, soil sensors and drones for real-time monitoring, decision support software to optimize planting and harvesting schedules. This approach saves money, reduces pollution, and boosts productivity, making sustainability practical and profitable. 7. Reducing food waste and supply chain emissions. Roughly 1/3 of all food produced is lost or wasted, contributing significantly to emissions. Solutions. Improve storage, transport, and refrigeration to reduce post-harvest losses. Enhance market access for smallholders. Promote consumer awareness and better food management. Develop circular systems that reuse food waste as compost or animal feed. Reducing waste is one of the fastest and most cost-effective mitigation actions across the food system. 8. Renewable energy in agriculture. Replacing fossil fuels with renewable energy reduces carbon dioxide emissions on farms. Renewable options. Solar-powered irrigation pumps. Wind and solar for electricity. Biogas from livestock manure or crop residues. Bioenergy crops used sustainably to displace fossil fuels. These systems improve energy access, especially in off-grid rural areas, while cutting emissions. 9. Carbon markets and incentives. Farmers can be incentivized to mitigate emissions through carbon credits and payment schemes. Examples: REDD+ programs that pay for reducing deforestation. Soil carbon credits earned through regenerative practices. Corporate supply chain initiatives that support low-emission producers. Such mechanisms must be transparent, equitable, and accessible, especially to smallholder farmers. 10. Integrated mitigation, adaptation approaches. Some practices offer win-win benefits for both adaptation and mitigation. Integration avoids trade-offs and maximizes climate and development goals. Conclusion: a climate solution in the soil. Agriculture holds immense potential to be part of the climate solution. While reducing emissions is essential, agricultural systems also offer a unique opportunity to draw carbon from the atmosphere and store it in soils, plants, and trees. For this transformation to succeed, we need supportive policies and incentives, investment in research and farmer training, a shift toward sustainable consumption and diets, strong international cooperation and funding. In the next chapter, we will examine the role of policy, governance, and international frameworks in enabling a climate-resilient and low-emission agricultural future. Chapter 7: Policy, Governance, and Global Cooperation. Addressing the complex interplay between climate change and agriculture requires more than just field-level solutions. It demands strong and coordinated policy frameworks, effective governance systems, and robust international cooperation. This chapter examines how institutions, governments, and global agreements shape climate-resilient and sustainable agriculture. 1. The role of policy in climate-resilient agriculture. Policies provide the rules, incentives, and resources that guide how agricultural systems evolve in response to climate change. Effective policies can encourage the adoption of sustainable practices, protect smallholders and vulnerable communities, stimulate research and development in climate-smart technologies, ensure access to finance and insurance. Without enabling policies, even the best agricultural innovations may not reach farmers or be adopted at scale. Key policy tools: subsidies and incentives for sustainable farming, tax breaks or grants for renewable energy or conservation, regulations on land use, water rights, and emissions, public procurement programs that support resilient food systems. 2. National adaptation plans and agricultural integration. Many countries have developed national adaptation plans, NAPs, under the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC. These plans identify priorities and actions needed to reduce climate vulnerability across sectors, including agriculture. Key elements of agricultural integration in NAPs: assessment of climate risks to food systems, identification of vulnerable regions and communities, investment in early warning systems and disaster preparedness, promotion of climate-smart agriculture and sustainable land use. Countries like Kenya, Bangladesh, and Peru have used NAPs to guide adaptation efforts, align funding, and engage local communities. 3. Mitigation and the Paris Agreement. The Paris Agreement 2015 commits countries to limit global warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius, with efforts to stay below 1.5 degrees Celsius. Agriculture features prominently in many nations' nationally determined contributions, NDCs, the emissions reduction targets submitted to the UN. Agricultural actions in NDCs include reducing methane from rice and livestock, increasing soil carbon sequestration, promoting agroforestry and reforestation, supporting sustainable livestock and manure management. However, implementation remains uneven, and many NDCs lack specific targets or funding mechanisms for agriculture. 4. Land rights and governance for smallholders. Effective climate policy must address land tenure and governance, especially for small-scale farmers, indigenous communities, and women, who often lack formal rights to the land they cultivate. Secure land rights. Encourage long-term investment in sustainable practices. Enable access to credit and government support. Strengthen resilience and food security. Policies that protect customary and community land rights and avoid large-scale land acquisitions are essential for equitable climate adaptation. 5. International cooperation and development assistance. Agriculture and climate change are global issues requiring shared solutions. International cooperation provides technical assistance for capacity building and training, funding and finance for climate-resilient infrastructure and innovation, knowledge sharing across borders, market access and fair trade policies for developing country farmers. Key international actors: FAO, IFAD, and World Bank, agricultural finance and policy; UNFCCC and IPCC, science and governance; CGIAR, global agricultural research; Green Climate Fund, GCF, and Global Environment Facility, GEF, funding adaptation and mitigation. Collaboration among these organizations supports policy coherence and reduces duplication of efforts. 6. Trade and climate policy alignment. International trade affects agriculture's emissions footprint and climate resilience. Trade policies must be aligned with climate goals to avoid negative outcomes. Issues to address: export subsidies that encourage monocultures or overproduction, tariffs and trade barriers on sustainable products, carbon leakage where emissions are shifted to other countries. Solutions: promote trade in climate-resilient technologies and low-emission food. Support regional food markets to reduce transport emissions. Establish sustainability standards and eco-labeling systems. Fair trade rules can help smallholders access global markets while incentivizing sustainable practices. 7. Private sector and public-private partnerships. The private sector plays a growing role in agricultural investment, technology development, and supply chain management. Governments can partner with private actors to accelerate climate action. Examples of collaboration: carbon offset programs involving agribusiness and smallholders. Sustainable supply chain certification, e.g. Rainforest Alliance, Fair Trade. Ag-tech incubators and financing platforms. Governance frameworks must ensure that private investments are aligned with public goals and do not marginalize vulnerable groups. 8. Participatory governance and local empowerment. Top-down policies alone cannot solve climate challenges. Effective governance includes bottom-up participation, where farmers and communities help shape decisions. Tools for participatory governance: farmer cooperatives and councils, community-based planning and monitoring, citizen science and local knowledge integration, participatory budgeting and priority setting. Empowering people at the grassroots ensures that climate policies are context-specific, inclusive, and just. 9. Monitoring, evaluation, and transparency. To build accountability and continuous improvement into climate and agriculture policies, governments and institutions must invest in monitoring and evaluation (M&E) systems. Key functions: track emissions, adaptation outcomes, and resilience metrics. Assess cost-effectiveness of interventions. Promote transparency and data sharing. Open access platforms and digital dashboards can provide real-time insights and inform evidence-based policymaking. 10. Challenges and future directions. Despite progress, several barriers remain. Lack of coordination between ministries, agriculture, environment, finance. Insufficient funding and access to climate finance for rural areas. Political instability and policy reversals. Gaps between global commitments and local implementation. Future priorities: strengthen multi-level governance from local to global. Align climate and development goals in all sectors. Increase support for climate justice and equity. Foster collaborative innovation across nations and disciplines. Conclusion: governance as a catalyst for change. Good policy and governance can be the engine that drives agricultural transformation in the face of climate change. From international agreements to village-level plans, coordination and cooperation across scales are essential. A sustainable, resilient agricultural future will not emerge by chance. It must be built intentionally, with shared responsibility and leadership across society. Chapter 8: Technology and Innovation in Climate-Resilient Agriculture. Technological advancement has always played a central role in agricultural development, from the domestication of crops to the mechanization of farming. In the era of climate change, innovation is more critical than ever. Emerging tools and technologies are helping farmers increase yields, use resources more efficiently, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and adapt to unpredictable weather. In this chapter, we examine the most promising technologies driving climate-resilient agriculture and explore how innovation can be scaled to benefit farmers of all sizes. 1. Precision agriculture. Precision agriculture uses technology to measure and respond to variability within fields. By applying the right input, e.g., water, fertilizer, pesticide at the right place and time, it reduces waste, improves yields, and minimizes environmental impact. Key tools: GPS-guided tractors and drones, soil sensors and weather stations, remote sensing satellites, variable rate technology, VRT, for site-specific input application. This approach helps farmers adapt to changing rainfall patterns, reduce nitrous oxide emissions, and conserve soil health. 2. Mobile and digital agriculture, AgTech. Mobile apps and digital platforms have become vital tools for farmers, especially smallholders in developing countries. Functions include weather forecasts and early warning alerts, pest and disease diagnostics, market prices and digital marketplaces, e-extension services and training videos. Examples: iCow Kenya for livestock health, Plantix India for crop disease detection, FarmLogs USA for farm data tracking. These technologies democratize access to information and improve decision-making under climate uncertainty. 3. Climate-resilient seed technology. Seed innovation is central to adapting to heat, drought, floods, and salinity. Developments include drought-tolerant maize and heat-resistant wheat, submergence-tolerant rice, e.g. Swarna sub-1, salt-tolerant barley and quinoa, short-duration crops to escape extreme weather events. Both traditional breeding and biotechnology, including CRISPR gene editing and GMOs, are being used to develop resilient varieties. Seed banks and community seed systems help preserve and distribute these innovations. 4. Renewable energy technologies. Replacing fossil fuels with clean energy sources helps reduce agriculture's carbon footprint while increasing energy access in rural areas. Applications include solar-powered irrigation and cold storage, wind turbines for remote farms, biogas digesters converting manure to energy, microgrids for agri-processing. Renewable energy supports climate adaptation by powering farm equipment and enabling off-grid productivity improvements. 5. Water-saving irrigation systems. Efficient irrigation technologies are essential in a warming world where droughts are more frequent. Innovations. Drip irrigation delivers water directly to roots with minimal waste. Sprinkler systems with climate sensors. Automated irrigation triggered by soil moisture levels. AI-based irrigation scheduling. These systems help conserve water, reduce energy use, and improve crop performance in dry regions. 6. Artificial intelligence, AI and machine learning. AI enables smarter agricultural planning by analyzing massive data sets for patterns and predictions. AI applications: yield forecasting and crop modeling, disease and pest detection via image recognition, predictive analytics for climate risks, autonomous machinery for planting, spraying, and harvesting. AI-driven tools help optimize resource use and prepare farmers for climate disruptions. 7. Biotechnology and genetic engineering. Modern biotechnology can speed up the development of stress-tolerant crops and livestock. Examples: GM crops resistant to drought or pests, e.g. Bt cotton. Gene editing, CRISPR, for precision trait development. Vaccines for livestock to prevent climate-sensitive diseases. Biotechnology remains controversial and must be managed with clear regulation, safety assessments, and public dialogue. 8. Post-harvest and storage innovations. Climate change increases post-harvest losses due to pests, temperature extremes, and humidity. New technologies. Solar-powered cold storage for perishables. Hermetic storage bags that protect grains from moisture and pests. Mobile processing units for value addition. Blockchain for traceability and fair pricing. These innovations reduce food waste, protect farmer incomes, and improve food security. 9. Robotics and automation. Labor shortages and extreme heat are pushing demand for automated agricultural systems. Current applications. Robotic weeders and planters. Automated milking and feeding systems in dairy farms. Harvesting robots for fruits and vegetables. Drone-based spraying and crop monitoring. Though more common in industrial agriculture, cost reduction and open-source tech are making robotics more accessible to smallholders. 10. Innovation ecosystems and scaling up. Technology alone cannot drive change. It must be supported by innovation ecosystems that foster collaboration between researchers, startups, farmers, and governments. Provide access to finance, especially for small-scale farmers. Ensure inclusivity, with women and marginalized groups involved. Support training, extension, and infrastructure. Innovation hubs, incubators, and agri-tech accelerators are key to turning ideas into scalable, impactful solutions. Conclusion: innovation as a pathway to resilience. Technology and innovation hold the key to a sustainable agricultural future in a warming world. While challenges remain, like digital divides, affordability, and regulatory hurdles, the potential for transformation is vast. To realize this potential, we must ensure that innovation reaches those most in need, supports both productivity and sustainability, respects ethical, environmental, and cultural considerations. In the next chapter, we will examine the social and economic dimensions of climate change and agriculture, exploring how these changes affect livelihoods, food security, and rural development. Chapter 9. Socioeconomic impacts and equity considerations. As the impacts of climate change intensify, agriculture is on the front lines, not only as a victim, but also as a source of livelihood, food security, and economic development for millions of people globally. For farmers, especially those in developing regions, climate change is affecting productivity, income, and the overall structure of agricultural economies. This chapter explores the socioeconomic dimensions of climate change and agriculture, focusing on how different communities are affected, the economic challenges they face, and the importance of ensuring that climate solutions are equitable and inclusive. 1. The impact of climate change on rural livelihoods. Agriculture remains the primary source of income for nearly 2 billion people worldwide, with rural communities depending on farming for their survival. As climate change alters rainfall patterns, increases temperatures, and intensifies extreme weather events, these livelihoods are under threat. Key impacts include reduced crop yields due to droughts, floods, or heat stress, loss of livestock due to disease or water scarcity, displacement caused by extreme weather events like floods and storms, decreased access to markets, as roads and infrastructure are damaged by storms. Climate-related shocks push vulnerable communities further into poverty, creating a vicious cycle of low productivity and increased vulnerability to future climate events. 2. Climate change and gender equity in agriculture. Women make up a significant portion of the agricultural labor force, particularly in developing countries. However, they face unique challenges in coping with climate change, including limited access to resources such as land, credit, and technology. Gendered impacts of climate change. Limited access to decision-making. Women often have less power in agricultural decision-making, meaning they have fewer opportunities to adopt climate-resilient practices. Increased workload. As climate change stresses resources, such as water and fuel, women are often responsible for collecting these resources, leading to a heavier workload. Vulnerability in rural economies. women are more likely to be involved in smallholder farming, which is particularly vulnerable to climate shocks. Empowering women with access to education, land, and technology is crucial to building resilient communities and ensuring that agricultural systems can adapt to climate change. 3. The economic costs of climate change in agriculture. The economic costs of climate change on agriculture are profound and widespread. These costs are not only felt by farmers, but also by entire national economies that rely on agricultural exports and food security. Economic impacts include reduced agricultural productivity. Climate change is expected to reduce yields of key crops like maize, wheat, and rice, resulting in significant economic losses, especially in developing countries where agriculture constitutes a large share of GDP. Increased food prices, reduced supply due to crop failures, coupled with increasing demand, will lead to higher food prices, disproportionately affecting low-income households. Loss of labor productivity. Higher temperatures and extreme weather events can also reduce agricultural labor productivity, further driving down income for farmers and workers. Migration and displacement. Climate-induced migration leads to increased pressure on urban infrastructure and services, further straining local economies. The global economic impact of climate change on agriculture is projected to reach trillions of dollars, affecting national and global food systems. 4. Food security and climate change. Climate change poses one of the biggest threats to global food security. As weather patterns become less predictable and extreme events more frequent, the availability, accessibility, and affordability of food are at risk. The effects on food security include reduced agricultural productivity in tropical and subtropical regions, where many staple crops are grown. Disruptions to food supply chains as floods, droughts, and storms damage transportation infrastructure. Nutritional quality decline. Higher carbon dioxide levels and changing climates can affect the nutritional content of key crops, reducing food quality. Worsen poverty. Food insecurity exacerbates poverty, especially for rural communities reliant on agriculture for both food and income. Countries that are most vulnerable to food insecurity often have weaker adaptive capacities, exacerbating the challenges of managing climate impacts. 5. Migration, displacement, and climate refugees. Climate change has become a major driver of migration and displacement, with rural agricultural communities among the most affected. As crop failures, water scarcity, and extreme weather events make life untenable, many people are forced to migrate in search of more stable livelihoods. Climate-induced migration leads to loss of agricultural skills and knowledge. Migrants may not be able to continue farming or may lack the resources to start new livelihoods in urban areas. Strain on urban infrastructure. Cities are ill-prepared for the influx of migrants, leading to overcrowding, unemployment, and social tensions. Cross-border migration. Entire regions may experience climate-induced displacement, creating climate refugees and international pressures on neighboring countries. Governments and international organizations must prepare for the realities of climate migration by developing policies to address displacement, protect migrants' rights, and ensure equitable access to resources. 6. Climate change and indigenous communities. Indigenous communities, often living in close connection with the land, are particularly vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. These communities typically rely on traditional knowledge and practices that are finely tuned to their local ecosystems. Key challenges for indigenous communities. Loss of traditional farming practices due to changing climatic conditions. Displacement due to extreme weather events or land degradation. Threats to food sovereignty. Climate impacts can undermine the ability of indigenous peoples to grow and gather traditional foods, increasing reliance on imported or industrially produced food. Cultural and spiritual impacts. Indigenous people often have a deep spiritual connection to their lands, and climate change threatens these cultural ties. Ensuring that indigenous knowledge is recognized and integrated into climate solutions is vital for both resilience and cultural preservation. 7. Social safety nets and adaptation financing. Social safety nets and adaptation financing are critical in protecting vulnerable groups from the economic shocks of climate change. Governments, international organizations, and the private sector must work together to create mechanisms that reduce the impact of climate-induced losses. Key solutions: social insurance, crop insurance, weather-indexed insurance, and savings schemes can help farmers manage risks and recover from shocks. Government support programs, emergency food aid, direct cash transfers, and subsidies for climate-smart technologies can provide immediate relief and long-term support. Climate financing, investment in adaptation projects, such as infrastructure improvements, capacity building, and sustainable land management, can help communities build resilience. However, these mechanisms must be accessible and equitable, ensuring that marginalized communities, especially women, smallholders, and indigenous people, are not left behind. 8. The role of education and capacity building. Equitable access to education and capacity building is fundamental to empowering farmers to cope with climate change. Education enables individuals to make informed decisions about adopting sustainable practices, accessing climate-smart technologies, and improving their livelihoods. Key education areas: climate literacy, understanding the science of climate change and its impacts on agriculture. Training in sustainable practices, educating farmers on climate-smart agriculture, water management, and soil conservation techniques. Financial literacy, providing farmers with the skills to access credit, insurance, and markets to increase resilience. Investing in education empowers communities to take ownership of their adaptation strategies and ensures a more equitable distribution of knowledge and resources. 9. Creating inclusive and just climate policies. As we design solutions to mitigate and adapt to climate change in agriculture, it is crucial that we do so in an inclusive and just manner. Policies must protect marginalized groups, ensure that women, indigenous peoples, and vulnerable communities are at the center of policy design and implementation. Address inequalities, tackle the root causes of social and economic disparities that hinder adaptive capacity, such as unequal land distribution and lack of access to resources. Foster participation, engage affected communities in decision-making, policy development, and the monitoring of climate actions. Equity considerations in agriculture are not only about addressing the current disparities, but also about ensuring that future generations inherit a more just, resilient, and sustainable food system. Conclusion: building a resilient and inclusive future. The socioeconomic impacts of climate change on agriculture are vast and complex, affecting livelihoods, food security, and economies at all levels. Equity and inclusion must be central to the response, ensuring that vulnerable communities are supported in building resilience to the changing climate. A resilient future will require strong, integrated policies that address both the physical and social dimensions of climate change. By focusing on empowerment, access, and social justice, we can create an agricultural system that thrives despite the challenges of a warming world. Chapter 10: The Future of Sustainable Agriculture. The future of agriculture is being shaped by the urgent need to address the twin challenges of feeding a growing global population, while mitigating and adapting to the impacts of climate change. As we transition toward a more sustainable agricultural system, the methods, technologies, and policies that guide farming practices will evolve to meet these challenges. This chapter explores the vision for sustainable agriculture, highlighting emerging trends, innovations, and strategies that promise to transform farming in a way that benefits both the environment and society. 1. Defining sustainable agriculture. Sustainable agriculture is often defined as farming that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. It encompasses three core pillars. Environmental sustainability, reducing environmental degradation, conserving biodiversity, and ensuring that agricultural practices do not deplete natural resources. Economic sustainability, ensuring farmers' livelihoods are protected, promoting fair trade, and supporting local economies. Social sustainability, strengthening food security, equity, and the well-being of rural communities, while enhancing access to education and healthcare. The future of sustainable agriculture will be a holistic approach that integrates all three pillars into farming systems that are resilient, efficient, and equitable. 2. The role of agroecology. Agroecology is gaining prominence as a comprehensive approach to sustainable farming. It emphasizes the importance of ecological principles and the use of local knowledge to build agricultural systems that are resilient to climate change. Unlike conventional agriculture, which often relies on industrial-scale inputs like synthetic fertilizers and pesticides, agroecology promotes practices that work with natural ecosystems. Key components of agroecology: diversified farming systems, integrating multiple crops, livestock, and agroforestry to increase biodiversity and reduce vulnerability to pests and diseases. Soil health, using techniques like crop rotation, cover cropping, and reduced tillage to maintain soil fertility and structure. Local knowledge, empowering farmers with the traditional wisdom and modern scientific tools to develop sustainable, context-specific solutions. Reduced chemical inputs, limiting the use of pesticides and fertilizers in favor of biological and ecological alternatives. Agroecology offers a path to resilience by increasing farm biodiversity, improving soil health, and reducing the dependency on external inputs, thus helping farmers adapt to changing climatic conditions. 3. Climate-smart agriculture, CSA. Climate-smart agriculture, CSA, refers to an integrated approach that seeks to address the challenges of food security and climate change at the same time. It focuses on three main goals: increasing agricultural productivity and income, adapting to the impacts of climate change, mitigating greenhouse gas emissions from agriculture. CSA promotes the adoption of practices, technologies, and policies that help farmers become more resilient to climate impacts while also contributing to reducing global emissions. Key CSA practices include improved water management, using efficient irrigation systems, rainwater harvesting, and soil moisture conservation to cope with droughts and floods. Conservation agriculture, practices such as minimum tillage, crop rotation, and agroforestry that reduce soil erosion and enhance soil carbon sequestration. Resilient crop varieties, developing and planting drought-resistant, heat-tolerant, and pest-resistant crop varieties to withstand the changing climate. CSA offers a win-win scenario, where agricultural systems contribute to both climate adaptation and mitigation. 4. The role of technology in the future of agriculture. Technology will play a central role in shaping the future of agriculture. With rapid advances in artificial intelligence, AI, robotics, biotechnology, and data analytics, the way we farm is evolving to become more precise, efficient, and climate resilient. Key technological trends shaping the future of agriculture. Big data and AI. Collecting and analyzing large volumes of data from farms, sensors, satellites, and weather stations can help farmers make better decisions on when to plant, irrigate, and harvest. AI-driven systems can predict crop yields, identify diseases, and optimize resource use. Automation and robotics. Drones, autonomous tractors, and harvesters are already being used to increase efficiency and reduce labor costs. These technologies will help overcome labor shortages and improve precision in tasks such as planting, weeding, and harvesting. Gene editing and biotechnology. Innovations in biotechnology, such as CRISPR gene editing, are enabling the development of crop varieties that are more resistant to climate stressors like drought, pests, and diseases. Vertical farming and hydroponics. These methods allow for year-round farming in controlled environments, significantly reducing the need for water and land while producing high-yield, nutritious crops in urban areas. While these technologies offer great promise, they must be carefully integrated into farming systems to ensure that they are accessible, affordable, and equitable for all farmers, including smallholders in developing countries. 5. Regenerative agriculture, a vision for the future. Regenerative agriculture goes beyond sustainability by focusing on restoring and regenerating the health of the land. It emphasizes improving soil health, increasing biodiversity, and restoring ecosystems that have been degraded by conventional agricultural practices. Principles of regenerative agriculture. Soil regeneration. Using practices that improve soil structure, organic matter content, and microbial diversity, such as cover cropping, composting, and rotational grazing. Agroforestry. Integrating trees into agricultural systems to enhance biodiversity, improve water retention, and sequester carbon. Holistic land management. Managing entire landscapes, rather than just individual crops, by considering the interaction of soil, water, plants, and animals. Regenerative agriculture not only improves resilience to climate change, but also helps mitigate its impacts by sequestering carbon in the soil. It represents a shift from treating land as a resource to be exploited to a living system that can be nurtured and restored. 6. Sustainable food systems, redefining the agricultural landscape. The future of sustainable agriculture also requires a transformation in how we produce, consume, and distribute food. Sustainable food systems focus on minimizing environmental impacts while ensuring that food remains nutritious, affordable, and accessible to all. Key elements of sustainable food systems. Local and regional food systems, reducing the carbon footprint of food by promoting shorter supply chains and supporting local farmers and markets. Plant-based diets, encouraging more sustainable eating habits, including plant-based foods that generally require fewer resources and have a lower environmental impact than animal-based products. Food waste reduction, addressing food loss and waste through improved harvesting techniques, storage, and distribution systems. By creating food systems that prioritize sustainability, we can reduce emissions, conserve resources, and enhance food security for all. 7. Policy and governance for a sustainable agricultural future. A shift toward sustainable agriculture will require strong, forward-thinking policy and governance frameworks that prioritize long-term environmental health and social equity. Governments, international organizations, and the private sector must work together to create policies that support the transition to sustainable farming practices. Key policy actions for the future of agriculture. Incentives for sustainable practices. Governments can provide subsidies, tax breaks, or grants for farmers who adopt climate-smart or regenerative practices. Research and development. Funding for agricultural research to develop new technologies, crop varieties, and farming techniques that are both productive and environmentally friendly. Fair trade and equity, ensuring that smallholders, women, and marginalized communities have access to markets, resources, and training, while promoting fair wages and working conditions in the agricultural sector. International cooperation. Climate change and agriculture are global issues that require coordinated international responses. Partnerships between countries, NGOs, and the private sector will be critical in scaling solutions. Policy frameworks must address the economic, social, and environmental dimensions of agriculture to create a fair and sustainable future for all farmers. 8. Looking ahead towards a resilient agricultural future. The future of agriculture is not set in stone. It will be shaped by our ability to innovate, adapt, and collaborate on a global scale. The challenges posed by climate change can seem overwhelming, but they also present opportunities to rethink how we produce and consume food. As we look ahead, the agricultural sector must evolve to adapt to the changing climate by embracing technologies and practices that improve resilience, mitigate climate change through carbon sequestration, reduced emissions, and sustainable land management, ensure food security for a growing global population, particularly in the face of increasing climate volatility. By integrating environmental, social, and economic sustainability into agricultural systems, we can create a food system that nourishes the planet and its people, ensuring a thriving agricultural landscape for generations to come. Conclusion: a path toward sustainable agriculture. The future of sustainable agriculture is within our reach. By embracing innovation, integrating ecological principles, and prioritizing equity, we can build a food system that is resilient, sustainable, and capable of addressing the challenges of climate change. Through collective action, investment in technology, and support for sustainable farming practices, we can ensure a better future for farmers, consumers, and the planet. Chapter 11: Policy, Governance, and Global Collaboration in Climate-Smart Agriculture. The challenges of climate change and agriculture demand action on multiple levels: local, national, and global. Effective policies, governance frameworks, and international cooperation are essential for building climate resilience in agricultural systems and addressing the complex socioeconomic and environmental issues associated with food production. In this chapter, we explore the role of policy and governance in supporting climate-smart agriculture, as well as the importance of global collaboration in achieving sustainable agricultural outcomes. 1. The need for comprehensive policy frameworks. Agricultural policies that prioritize climate resilience must be comprehensive, addressing both the immediate and long-term challenges posed by climate change. These frameworks should consider not only environmental sustainability, but also the economic and social dimensions of agriculture, ensuring that solutions are equitable and inclusive. Key considerations for climate-smart agricultural policies. Integration of climate change adaptation and mitigation. Policies must simultaneously address how agriculture can adapt to climate change, e.g., drought-resistant crops, water-efficient irrigation, and reduce its contribution to global warming, e.g., reducing emissions from livestock and fertilizers. Support for smallholder farmers. Smallholders make up the majority of farmers in developing countries and are often the most vulnerable to climate change. Policies should focus on improving their access to resources, technology, credit, and markets. Promoting sustainable land use. Policies should encourage sustainable land management practices, including agroecology, conservation agriculture, and reforestation, to improve soil health and biodiversity while increasing food production. Successful climate-smart agriculture policies must recognize the interconnectedness of climate change, agriculture, and broader development goals such as poverty reduction, food security, and social equity. 2. National and regional approaches to climate-smart agriculture. Governments have a key role to play in fostering an environment conducive to climate-smart agriculture through national and regional policies. By designing policy frameworks that are flexible and responsive to the needs of diverse farming communities, governments can create enabling environments for sustainable agricultural practices. Key policy tools at the national and regional levels. Subsidies and incentives for sustainable practices. Governments can provide financial support to farmers who adopt sustainable practices like reduced tillage, organic farming, and agroforestry. These incentives help lower the barriers to adopting climate-smart technologies. Land tenure reforms. Secure land rights are essential for encouraging long-term investment in sustainable practices. By strengthening land tenure systems, governments can promote responsible land use and encourage farmers to invest in soil health and conservation. Climate adaptation planning. National governments should develop comprehensive climate adaptation plans for agriculture, incorporating data on climate projections, vulnerability assessments, and capacity building measures for farmers. Market access and infrastructure. Investments in infrastructure, roads, storage facilities, irrigation, can reduce the vulnerability of rural communities to climate shocks by improving access to markets and enabling better management of agricultural products. In regions particularly vulnerable to climate change, such as sub-Saharan Africa and Southeast Asia, policies that focus on improving farmers' adaptive capacities are critical for ensuring food security and economic stability. 3. International climate agreements and agriculture. Climate change is a global issue, and addressing its impacts on agriculture requires coordinated action at the international level. The United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC, and its associated agreements, such as the Paris Agreement, play an essential role in shaping the global response to climate change. Key international policy frameworks. The Paris Agreement. This landmark international treaty aims to limit global warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius, with efforts to limit it to 1.5 degrees Celsius. While agriculture is not explicitly addressed in the agreement, the Paris Agreement's emphasis on climate adaptation and mitigation provides the framework for agricultural sectors worldwide to adopt climate-smart practices. Nationally determined contributions, NDCs. As part of the Paris Agreement, countries submit their NDCs, which outline how they plan to mitigate and adapt to climate change. Several countries have included agriculture as a key sector in their NDCs, setting targets for reducing emissions from agriculture and enhancing food security through sustainable practices. The Global Climate Fund, the Green Climate Fund, GCF, supports developing countries in implementing climate change mitigation and adaptation projects, including those in agriculture. The GCF plays an essential role in providing financial resources to scale up climate-smart agricultural practices, especially in vulnerable regions. The UN Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. Several SDGs are closely aligned with climate change and agriculture, including Goal 2, Zero Hunger, Goal 13, Climate Action, and Goal 15, Life on Land. These goals guide countries and international organizations in designing policies and programs that simultaneously address food security and climate change. International frameworks provide the necessary political momentum and financial support for climate-smart agriculture, while fostering collaboration across borders. 4. The role of private sector and public-private partnerships. The private sector plays a critical role in driving innovation, investment, and the scaling of climate-smart agricultural solutions. Companies involved in agribusiness, food processing, and technology can support sustainable practices by developing and marketing climate-resilient technologies such as drought-tolerant seeds, efficient irrigation systems, and precision farming tools. Public-private partnerships, PPPs, can be a powerful tool for advancing climate-smart agriculture. Technology transfer. Partnerships between private companies and governments can facilitate the transfer of innovative technologies to smallholder farmers, particularly in developing countries. This can include providing access to mobile apps, satellite data, and precision farming tools. Investment in sustainable infrastructure. PPPs can help finance the development of climate-resilient infrastructure, such as weather monitoring systems, irrigation networks, and storage facilities, which are essential for reducing post-harvest losses and improving market access. Supply chain collaboration. Large corporations, such as multinational food companies, can work with smallholders to promote sustainable agricultural practices throughout their supply chains. This includes setting sustainability standards for sourcing raw materials, such as palm oil, soy, and cocoa, and providing farmers with the tools and knowledge to meet those standards. By leveraging the strengths of both the public and private sectors, PPPs can accelerate the adoption of climate-smart practices and increase their impact across global agricultural systems. 5. Climate finance for agriculture. Access to climate finance is essential for enabling farmers, particularly in developing countries, to transition to climate-smart agriculture. The financial resources needed to implement adaptation and mitigation measures are vast, and governments alone cannot bear the full cost. Sources of climate finance include international climate funds, the Green Climate Fund, Global Environment Facility (GEF), and Adaptation Fund provide grants and loans to developing countries for climate adaptation and mitigation projects, including those in agriculture. Bilateral and multilateral funding. Developed countries often provide climate finance to developing nations through bilateral agreements and multilateral organizations like the World Bank, which supports agricultural projects aimed at enhancing climate resilience. Private sector investment. Climate finance from private investors, such as impact investors and philanthropic organizations, can support the scaling of innovative agricultural technologies and business models that address climate change. Governments must create enabling environments that encourage both public and private investment in climate-smart agriculture. This includes developing climate risk insurance schemes, offering tax incentives for sustainable practices, and creating frameworks that de-risk investments in agriculture. 6. The importance of multilateral collaboration and knowledge sharing. Collaboration among countries, research institutions, and international organizations is essential for addressing the global nature of climate change and agriculture. Knowledge sharing and capacity building are critical components of this collaboration, as they enable countries to learn from each other's experiences and adapt successful strategies to their local contexts. Key platforms for global collaboration. The FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization. The FAO plays a central role in promoting climate-smart agriculture globally, providing technical expertise, policy guidance, and financial resources to countries. The CGIAR Consortium. CGIAR is a global research partnership focused on improving food security and agricultural sustainability. Its research on climate-resilient crops, livestock systems, and water management practices is invaluable in supporting climate-smart agriculture. The UNFCCC and COP negotiations. The Conference of the Parties COP meetings, held annually under the UNFCCC, provide an important platform for governments, NGOs, and the private sector to discuss and negotiate climate action. Agriculture has become an increasingly important issue in these discussions, with commitments to support climate-resilient farming systems. Regional collaboration. Regional organizations, such as the African Union and the ASEAN, Association of Southeast Asian Nations, play a critical role in facilitating dialogue and cooperation on climate and agriculture issues within their regions. Global cooperation is essential for scaling up climate-smart agriculture solutions and ensuring that they are accessible to the farmers who need them most. 7. Building a just and inclusive future. As we move toward a more sustainable and climate-resilient agricultural future, it is essential that policies and governance structures prioritize equity and inclusivity. This includes ensuring that the needs of marginalized communities, including smallholder farmers, women, and indigenous peoples, are at the center of agricultural decision-making. Key strategies for ensuring inclusivity. Participatory decision-making. Engaging farmers, especially those from vulnerable groups, in the policy-making process ensures that their voices are heard and their needs are met. Gender-sensitive policies. Addressing the unique challenges faced by women in agriculture, such as unequal access to land and resources, can empower them to take on leadership roles in climate adaptation. Youth involvement. Investing in agricultural education and providing opportunities for young people to engage in climate-smart agriculture can help build the next generation of farmers and leaders. Chapter 12. Education, Awareness, and Capacity Building for Climate-Smart Agriculture. As the world grapples with the challenges of climate change, the need for widespread knowledge and skills development in climate-smart agriculture, CSA, has never been greater. Education, awareness, and capacity building are critical to ensuring that farmers, communities, policymakers, and businesses are equipped with the tools and understanding they need to successfully transition to more sustainable agricultural practices. In this chapter, we explore the importance of education and awareness in promoting CSA, the role of capacity building at various levels, and strategies to empower stakeholders to take action against climate change in agriculture. 1. The importance of education in climate-smart agriculture. Education is the foundation upon which the transition to climate-smart agriculture must be built. Whether in formal academic settings, informal community networks, or through online platforms, providing individuals with the knowledge of climate change and its effects on agriculture is essential for fostering adaptive and mitigation responses. Key educational goals for climate-smart agriculture. Understanding climate change and its impact. Farmers, particularly those in vulnerable areas, need to grasp how climate change is affecting crop yields, water availability, soil health, and overall agricultural productivity. This knowledge empowers them to take proactive measures. Promoting climate-smart practices. Farmers need to be educated about climate-resilient farming practices such as crop diversification, agroforestry, soil conservation, and water management techniques that can help them adapt to climate variability. Introducing new agricultural technologies. Education should cover the latest advances in agricultural technology, including precision farming, drought-resistant crops, and climate forecasting tools to help farmers make better decisions. Building understanding of policy frameworks. A well-informed population, including policymakers and the general public, is crucial for driving policies that support climate-smart agriculture and integrating them into national and local agendas. Education is not only for farmers, but for a broad range of stakeholders, from government officials to consumers. Understanding the interconnectedness of climate, agriculture, and food systems is vital for all individuals involved in creating solutions. 2. Raising awareness on climate-smart agriculture. Awareness campaigns are an important tool for spreading knowledge about climate-smart agriculture, CSA, and mobilizing communities for action. Awareness-raising efforts can help shift public attitudes towards sustainable agriculture, increasing demand for eco-friendly food production practices, and encouraging policymakers to prioritize CSA. Key strategies for raising awareness. Media campaigns. Using television, radio, social media, and other platforms to share success stories, best practices, and evidence of CSA's effectiveness can inspire others to adopt similar strategies. Farmer-to-farmer learning. Peer-to-peer education is one of the most effective methods in rural areas. By facilitating farmer exchanges, community workshops, and field visits, farmers can learn from each other's experiences and adopt practices that work well in their local context. Incorporating CSA into school curricula. Introducing climate change and agriculture-related content in primary, secondary, and tertiary education can build a future generation of climate-conscious citizens and farmers. Targeting the youth. Engaging young people in agricultural education through clubs, contests, and interactive programs helps cultivate interest in agriculture and promotes innovation in addressing climate change. Public engagement campaigns. Educating the broader public on the importance of climate-smart agriculture through exhibitions, seminars, and public forums can also help build the political and economic support needed to drive policies in favor of CSA. Raising awareness helps to bridge the knowledge gap and empowers individuals to make informed decisions about how they interact with food systems and the environment. 3. Capacity building for farmers and agricultural workers. Farmers and agricultural workers are on the front lines of climate change, facing the brunt of its impacts. Therefore, building their capacity to understand and implement climate-smart practices is essential for ensuring the resilience of agriculture in a warming world. Key areas of capacity building for farmers. Training on climate resilience. Providing training on how to cope with extreme weather events such as droughts, floods, and heat waves, as well as how to prepare for longer-term climate shifts, will increase farmers' adaptive capacity. Soil health management. Educating farmers on practices like organic farming, crop rotation, and no-till agriculture can help improve soil fertility, retain water, and reduce dependence on chemical fertilizers. Water management. With water scarcity being one of the most pressing challenges posed by climate change, farmers need to be trained on efficient irrigation practices, water harvesting, and the importance of maintaining watersheds and water sources. Business and financial literacy. Understanding financial tools such as insurance against climate-related risks, accessing loans, and planning for long-term financial sustainability can help farmers improve their resilience to climate change. Technology adoption. Training farmers on how to use new agricultural technologies such as weather prediction models, drones, and precision irrigation systems can help them make more informed and timely decisions. Building the capacity of farmers requires a combination of formal education, hands-on training, and continuous support to ensure that they can effectively integrate climate-smart practices into their daily routines. 4. Building capacity at the community and local levels. In addition to individual capacity building, communities must be equipped with the skills and knowledge to address climate change on a larger scale. Agricultural systems are embedded in local communities, and these communities need to work together to build resilient food systems that can withstand the shocks of climate change. Key approaches to community-level capacity building. Community-based organizations, CBOs, empowering local organizations to educate and engage farmers on climate-smart practices can help spread knowledge and mobilize action at the grassroots level. CBOs often have the trust of local communities and can provide tailored solutions to address specific climate risks. Participatory planning. Involving communities in the planning and decision-making process ensures that their voices are heard and that the solutions proposed are locally relevant and feasible. This approach fosters ownership and ensures long-term success. Local extension services. Extension officers, individuals who provide technical support and guidance to farmers, are key players in capacity building. By training extension officers on the latest climate-smart practices and tools, governments can ensure that knowledge flows directly to farmers in rural areas. Cooperatives and farmer groups. Supporting cooperatives enables farmers to pool resources, share knowledge, and access markets more easily. These groups can also serve as a hub for promoting climate-smart practices and disseminating information. When communities are well equipped to implement climate-smart practices, the impacts of climate change can be more effectively mitigated or adapted to, while enhancing the local economy and improving food security. 5. Capacity building for policymakers and government officials. Policymakers play an essential role in shaping the broader agricultural policy landscape, and their understanding of climate change and its effects on agriculture is crucial for designing effective interventions. Building the capacity of government officials and policymakers is therefore necessary for ensuring the adoption of appropriate policies that support climate-smart agriculture. Key areas of capacity building for policymakers. Climate change science and its agricultural impacts. Policymakers need to understand the scientific basis of climate change and how it impacts agriculture. This knowledge allows them to create evidence-based policies that are appropriate for their country's specific needs. Policy integration. Policymakers should be trained on how to integrate climate change adaptation and mitigation into agricultural, trade, and development policies. This requires understanding how various policy sectors intersect and how cross-sectoral approaches can be used to address climate challenges. Monitoring and evaluation, M&E. Effective M&E systems are necessary to track the progress of climate-smart agriculture initiatives. Policymakers should be trained in designing and implementing M&E frameworks to ensure that climate-smart policies are producing the intended outcomes. Financial mechanisms for climate-smart agriculture. Understanding how to access and distribute climate finance is essential for implementing large-scale CSA programs. Capacity-building initiatives should include training on how to mobilize resources from international climate funds and direct them to farmers and agricultural projects. Governments that are equipped with the knowledge and skills to develop and implement climate-smart policies will create the enabling environments necessary for the widespread adoption of climate-resilient agricultural practices. 6. The role of international organizations and NGOs in capacity building. International organizations, development agencies, and non-governmental organizations, NGOs, have an essential role in providing capacity-building support to governments, farmers, and communities. These organizations often have the expertise, resources, and networks to offer targeted training and facilitate knowledge sharing at the global level. Examples of capacity-building support. FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization. The FAO has various programs aimed at building the capacity of countries and farmers to respond to climate change, such as the Climate Smart Agriculture (CSA) program and the Global Alliance for Climate Smart Agriculture. CGIAR, Consultative Group on International Agricultural Research. CGIAR provides critical research and tools for farmers and policymakers, helping to build capacity through innovations in crop breeding, pest management, and climate modeling. World Bank and other financial institutions. These organizations provide funding for capacity-building projects in developing countries, supporting the integration of climate change adaptation into national agricultural strategies. International organizations and NGOs are also instrumental in facilitating the exchange of knowledge between countries and supporting the implementation of climate-smart agriculture at a global scale. 7. Monitoring and evaluation of capacity-building efforts. To ensure that capacity-building initiatives are effective, it is important to implement robust monitoring and evaluation (M&E) systems. M&E helps track progress, identify challenges, and measure the impact of education and training programs. Key elements of M&E for capacity building. Baseline assessments. Before initiating capacity-building activities, it is essential to assess the existing knowledge, skills, and resources available at the local, national, and regional levels. This helps tailor programs to specific needs. Feedback mechanisms. Engaging participants in feedback sessions and surveys ensures that training programs meet their needs and allows for continuous improvement. Impact assessments. Tracking the long-term impact of capacity-building efforts on agricultural practices, productivity, and climate resilience is critical for evaluating the success of these programs. Through effective M&E, capacity-building programs can be refined and scaled up to ensure maximum impact. 8. Conclusion. Empowering communities for a climate-smart agricultural future. Education, awareness, and capacity building are the cornerstones of a successful transition to climate-smart agriculture. By equipping farmers, communities, governments, and international stakeholders with the knowledge and tools to adapt to and mitigate the effects of climate change, we can ensure a resilient agricultural future. Capacity building is a continuous process, and as climate change accelerates, the need for sustained investment in education and training will only grow. As we move forward, it is essential to foster global cooperation, create robust learning platforms, and empower local communities to take ownership of their climate-resilient agricultural future. The future of agriculture depends on the collective effort to equip everyone with the knowledge, skills, and resources to meet the challenges of climate change head-on. Chapter 13. Future Directions and Innovations in Climate-Smart Agriculture. As the impacts of climate change continue to reshape the global agricultural landscape, the future of food production will require ongoing innovation, adaptation, and transformation. Climate-smart agriculture, CSA, is not a static field, but one that is evolving rapidly as new technologies, practices, and policy frameworks emerge. In this chapter, we will explore the future directions for climate-smart agriculture, focusing on innovative solutions, emerging technologies, and the need for ongoing collaboration to ensure sustainable and resilient agricultural systems for future generations. 1. The evolution of climate-smart agriculture. Climate-smart agriculture has already made significant strides in addressing climate change challenges in agriculture, but its future lies in continuous refinement and the integration of emerging technologies. The next frontier in CSA will involve scaling up existing innovations, enhancing farmer access to new tools, and ensuring that these practices are implemented at a global scale. Key trends in the evolution of CSA. Integration of big data and digital agriculture. The future of CSA will be deeply linked with the use of big data and digital technologies. Data-driven farming solutions, such as precision agriculture, will allow farmers to make informed decisions on resource use, pest management, irrigation, and soil health, optimizing productivity while minimizing environmental impacts. Climate forecasting and risk management. Advances in climate modeling and weather prediction technologies will allow farmers to better understand and plan for climate risks. By accessing real-time weather data, farmers can adjust planting schedules, select more resilient crop varieties, and prepare for extreme weather events. Decentralized, farmer-led solutions. The future of CSA will see a shift towards more locally tailored solutions. As farmers increasingly adopt CSA practices, community-led innovations and knowledge sharing will become critical to ensuring the success of climate-resilient agricultural systems. These developments will enable farmers to manage risks more effectively and increase productivity, even in the face of climate variability. 2. The role of technology in climate-smart agriculture. Technology will be at the heart of innovations in climate-smart agriculture. Emerging technologies promise to transform how we produce food, manage resources, and mitigate environmental impacts in farming. The key to success will be integrating these technologies into the existing agricultural systems, particularly for smallholder farmers. Key technological innovations in CSA. Precision agriculture. The use of technologies like drones, remote sensing, and satellite imagery allows farmers to monitor soil health, crop conditions, water usage, and pest infestations in real time. This data can guide decision-making processes and optimize input use, reducing waste and improving yields while minimizing environmental impacts. Genetic engineering and climate-resilient crops. Advances in genetic modification, GM, and gene editing, e.g. CRISPR, are making it possible to develop crops that are more resistant to drought, heat, pests, and diseases. These innovations hold the potential to greatly improve food security, particularly in areas vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. Smart irrigation systems. The development of smart irrigation systems, which use sensors and automation to regulate water use, will allow farmers to maximize water efficiency, reduce waste, and ensure that crops receive the optimal amount of water to thrive under changing climate conditions. Biotechnology in soil management. Innovations in soil microbiome management and the use of biofertilizers will help improve soil health, restore degraded land, and increase soil carbon sequestration, all of which contribute to more sustainable agricultural practices. By combining cutting-edge technologies with traditional farming knowledge, the next generation of farmers will have the tools to adapt to and mitigate the impacts of climate change. 3. Innovations in sustainable land management. Sustainable land management, SLM practices, will continue to evolve as agriculture seeks solutions to balance increased food production with environmental conservation. As populations grow and more land is needed for agriculture, it is imperative to use land efficiently and regenerate degraded soils and ecosystems. Promising innovations in land management. Agroecology. Agroecological principles, such as diversified farming systems, integration of agroforestry, and using natural pest control, are gaining traction as solutions to combat the environmental impacts of industrial agriculture. These practices aim to create resilient, self-sustaining ecosystems that are more capable of adapting to climate change. Reforestation and afforestation. Reforestation efforts are expanding as a tool for enhancing biodiversity, stabilizing soils, and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Farmers are increasingly integrating trees into agricultural systems through practices like agroforestry, which provides multiple benefits, such as increased carbon sequestration, improved water retention, and additional sources of income from timber and non-timber products. Soil carbon sequestration. Soil management practices that enhance carbon sequestration, such as no-till farming, cover cropping, and rotational grazing, are gaining popularity as farmers seek to offset emissions while improving soil fertility. These practices also offer the potential for carbon credits as part of emerging carbon markets. Land restoration. Land degradation, caused by deforestation, overgrazing, and poor agricultural practices, is a significant threat to global food security. Innovations in land restoration, such as revegetation projects, terracing, and watershed management, can regenerate damaged ecosystems and improve agricultural productivity in the long term. These innovations are contributing to more sustainable land management practices, ensuring that agriculture can continue to provide food while preserving vital ecosystem services for future generations. 4. New models of agricultural financing and support. For the widespread adoption of climate-smart practices, new models of financing and financial support will be essential. The traditional methods of agricultural financing must evolve to account for the unique challenges posed by climate change, such as increased uncertainty and risk. Key models of financing for CSA. Climate insurance and risk management tools. As climate-related risks grow, climate risk insurance products and financial tools that protect farmers against crop loss, drought, and other climate-related disasters will be crucial for ensuring that smallholders and larger producers can continue farming in a volatile climate. Impact investing and green bonds. There is increasing interest in impact investing, where investors support businesses or projects that contribute to both social and environmental outcomes. Green bonds are also emerging as a financing tool for funding large-scale climate adaptation projects in agriculture, such as infrastructure development and sustainable farming practices. Carbon credits and payment for ecosystem services, PES. The growing emphasis on carbon markets offers opportunities for farmers who adopt climate-friendly practices to earn revenue by sequestering carbon through activities like reforestation, sustainable land management, and soil restoration. PES programs reward farmers for the environmental services they provide, creating an additional income stream. These innovative financing models will be key to ensuring that the adoption of climate-smart agriculture is feasible, scalable, and sustainable in the long term. 5. Strengthening global collaboration for climate-smart agriculture. The global nature of climate change means that no single country or entity can address the challenges alone. International collaboration will be essential in advancing climate-smart agriculture across regions, particularly in developing countries where the impacts of climate change are most severe. Pathways to greater collaboration. International partnerships and alliances. Initiatives like the Global Alliance for Climate-Smart Agriculture, GACSA, and CGIAR, Consultative Group on International Agricultural Research, play pivotal roles in fostering collaboration between governments, research institutions, NGOs, and the private sector. These platforms facilitate knowledge exchange, technology transfer, and the scaling up of successful CSA practices. South-South cooperation. Developing countries, particularly those in Africa, Asia, and Latin America, can share knowledge and experience in adapting to climate change. South-South cooperation. Collaboration between countries in the Global South has the potential to strengthen agricultural resilience in regions with similar challenges. Multilateral climate agreements. Global climate agreements such as the Paris Agreement offer a framework for nations to collectively commit to reducing greenhouse gas emissions and adapting to climate change. Agriculture must be central to these discussions, as it is both a contributor to and a victim of climate change. Through continued global cooperation and the exchange of knowledge and resources, climate-smart agriculture can become a global movement that benefits farmers, ecosystems, and communities worldwide. 6. Building resilience for the future of agriculture. Looking to the future, building resilience in agricultural systems will require innovative solutions that address both current and future challenges. The next era of climate-smart agriculture will prioritize sustainability, equity, and resilience, ensuring that agricultural systems can continue to feed the world while minimizing negative environmental impacts. Key components of building resilience. Ecosystem-based approaches. Incorporating ecosystem services into agricultural systems through strategies such as ecosystem-based adaptation, EBA, and nature-based solutions, NBS, will help build resilience to climate change while enhancing food security. Strengthening food systems. Resilient agricultural systems must be part of broader sustainable food systems that prioritize local food production, reduce food waste, and encourage healthier diets. Policy integration. Governments will need to integrate climate resilience into agricultural policies and prioritize CSA in national development plans. This will include aligning agricultural subsidies, land use policies, and climate adaptation strategies. The future of agriculture will depend on our collective ability to innovate, collaborate, and adapt to the changing climate. As we look ahead, the continued advancement of climate-smart practices, technologies, and policies will be essential for building a more sustainable and resilient agricultural sector. 7. Conclusion. A vision for the future of climate-smart agriculture. The future of climate-smart agriculture is one of innovation, collaboration, and sustainability. As new technologies and practices emerge, we have the opportunity to transform agriculture into a powerful tool for combating climate change, ensuring food security, and preserving the planet for future generations. However, this transformation requires sustained investment, political will, and a shared vision for the future of global food systems. By embracing innovation, supporting farmers, and fostering international cooperation, we can unlock the potential of climate-smart agriculture and build a resilient future for agriculture in the face of climate change. Chapter 14. Policy Frameworks and Governance for Climate-Smart Agriculture. Effective policy frameworks and robust governance structures are fundamental to promoting the adoption and scaling up of climate-smart agriculture, CSA. Agriculture is at the intersection of food security, environmental sustainability, and economic growth, and its transformation requires coordinated action from all levels of government, international organizations, the private sector, and civil society. In this chapter, we explore the key components of policy frameworks and governance structures that can support CSA and drive the necessary changes in agricultural practices to mitigate and adapt to climate change. 1. The role of policy in climate-smart agriculture. Policies are critical in creating an enabling environment for the widespread adoption of climate-smart agriculture. Clear, supportive, and actionable policies help reduce the risks and barriers that farmers face when adopting new practices and technologies. At the same time, they ensure that agricultural systems are aligned with national and international climate goals. Key policy objectives for promoting CSA. Climate adaptation and resilience. Governments must prioritize policies that enable farmers to adapt to climate change through access to resources, technologies, and knowledge. This includes providing subsidies, insurance mechanisms, and incentives to support farmers who adopt climate-resilient practices. Climate mitigation. Policies must also address the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions from the agricultural sector. These could include incentives for reducing methane emissions from livestock, promoting agroforestry, and encouraging sustainable land management practices that sequester carbon. Food security. Ensuring food security is central to CSA policies. Governments must integrate climate resilience into national food security strategies, ensuring that vulnerable populations have access to affordable, nutritious, and climate-resilient food. Resource management. Policies should focus on sustainable resource management, particularly water, soil, and biodiversity. Strengthening regulations related to sustainable water use, soil conservation, and biodiversity protection is crucial for enhancing agricultural resilience. A comprehensive policy framework should provide incentives for farmers to adopt CSA practices, facilitate the transfer of knowledge and technologies, and ensure that agriculture remains a sustainable and productive sector in the face of climate change. 2. Integrating climate-smart agriculture into national policies. For CSA to achieve its full potential, it must be fully integrated into national agricultural and climate policies. This requires aligning agricultural development goals with climate change adaptation and mitigation strategies, ensuring that both sectors work together toward common objectives. Key strategies for integrating CSA into national policies. National Adaptation Plans, NAPs. Countries should develop and implement national adaptation plans, NAPs, that outline how agricultural systems will adapt to climate change. These plans should include specific actions to enhance climate resilience in agriculture, such as the development of drought-resistant crop varieties, improved irrigation systems, and the promotion of climate-smart farming practices. Climate Action Plans. Agriculture should be integrated into broader climate action plans that aim to reduce emissions. Nationally determined contributions, NDCs, under the Paris Agreement should include specific targets and actions related to sustainable agriculture, such as reducing the carbon footprint of agriculture and enhancing carbon sequestration. Cross-sectoral policies. Given the interconnected nature of climate, agriculture, water, and energy, CSA policies must be integrated across sectors. For instance, policies that address water scarcity should be closely linked with agricultural policies that promote water-efficient irrigation practices. Similarly, land use policies should consider the broader ecosystem services that agriculture provides, such as carbon sequestration, biodiversity conservation, and soil health. Policy coherence. To avoid conflicting policies, there is a need for policy coherence between climate, agriculture, land use, and development policies. Ensuring that these policies complement each other is essential for maximizing the effectiveness of CSA interventions. Integrating CSA into national policies requires collaboration between ministries and departments, as well as the active involvement of stakeholders across different sectors, including agriculture, finance, environment, and rural development. 3. International governance and global policy frameworks. In addition to national policies, international governance structures and global frameworks play a crucial role in promoting CSA. Global cooperation is necessary to address the transboundary nature of climate change and food security, as well as to share knowledge and resources across borders. Key international frameworks for CSA. The Paris Agreement. Under the Paris Agreement, countries have committed to limiting global temperature rise and achieving climate resilience. Agriculture plays a critical role in both adaptation and mitigation efforts, and countries should use their nationally determined contributions, NDCs, to set concrete targets for CSA. The Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. Agriculture is central to achieving several SDGs, including Goal 2, Zero Hunger, Goal 13, Climate Action, and Goal 15, Life on Land. Global policy frameworks, like the SDGs, provide a roadmap for integrating CSA into broader development strategies. The Global Framework for Climate Services, GFCS. This international initiative aims to enhance the use of climate services in decision-making. Providing farmers with access to climate data and forecasting tools is a key component of CSA and can support more informed decisions on when to plant, irrigate, or harvest crops. The UN Convention to Combat Desertification, UNCCD. The UNCCD focuses on land degradation and desertification, both of which are exacerbated by climate change. Through its initiatives, the UNCCD encourages countries to adopt sustainable land management practices that contribute to CSA. The Global Alliance for Climate-Smart Agriculture, GACSA. GACSA is an international multi-stakeholder platform that promotes CSA practices globally. It brings together governments, businesses, civil society organizations, and farmers to collaborate on solutions to climate challenges in agriculture. International governance and global frameworks create the necessary space for countries to collaborate, share best practices, and scale up CSA efforts. However, effective implementation at the national and local levels is essential for these frameworks to have a meaningful impact. 4. Financing climate-smart agriculture. The financial resources needed to implement CSA are substantial, and without adequate funding, the widespread adoption of climate-smart practices will be limited. Policymakers must create financial systems that support the transition to climate-smart agriculture, including mechanisms for investment, access to credit, and the creation of financial incentives. Key financial mechanisms for CSA. Climate finance. Developed countries have committed to providing climate finance to help developing countries adapt to climate change and mitigate its impacts. CSA should be a key focus of this finance, as it directly contributes to both adaptation and mitigation goals. Programs such as the Green Climate Fund, GCF, and Global Environment Facility, GEF, provide funding for CSA projects. Public-private partnerships, PPPs. Collaboration between governments, international organizations, and the private sector is essential for mobilizing resources for CSA. PPPs can help reduce risks and provide farmers with access to credit, insurance, and investment in climate-resilient technologies. Carbon markets. Farmers who adopt climate-smart practices, such as agroforestry or soil carbon sequestration, could benefit from carbon credit systems. International carbon markets provide an opportunity to generate revenue through the sale of carbon credits, incentivizing the adoption of CSA practices. Agricultural insurance. Climate risk insurance products, such as crop insurance or weather-indexed insurance, can help farmers cope with the financial impacts of extreme weather events. Governments can play a role in supporting the development of such insurance schemes and making them accessible to smallholder farmers. Microfinance and rural lending. For small-scale farmers, access to finance is often a significant barrier to adopting CSA practices. Microfinance institutions and rural banks can provide affordable loans that enable farmers to invest in new technologies, improve their land management practices, or diversify their income sources. A combination of public and private financing, along with innovative financial tools, is required to ensure that CSA becomes a financially viable option for farmers worldwide. 5. Governance structures for CSA. Effective governance structures are critical for coordinating and implementing CSA policies at the national and local levels. Governments must work closely with local communities, farmers, and other stakeholders to ensure that CSA policies are well designed and implemented effectively. Key elements of good governance for CSA. Multi-stakeholder involvement. CSA governance must involve a wide range of stakeholders, including farmers, rural communities, civil society organizations, the private sector, and government agencies. Participatory governance ensures that policies and programs are grounded in local realities and that the needs of vulnerable groups are addressed. Decentralized decision-making. While national governments play an important role in setting policies, local governments and communities should be empowered to implement CSA practices in their regions. Decentralized decision-making allows for more context-specific solutions and ensures that local knowledge is incorporated into policy design and implementation. Transparent monitoring and accountability. To ensure that CSA policies are effectively implemented, governments must establish transparent monitoring and evaluation (M&E) systems. This allows for tracking progress, identifying gaps, and adjusting policies as needed to meet climate and agricultural goals. Policy coherence and integration. CSA governance requires strong coordination between various government departments, such as agriculture, environment, and finance, to ensure that policies are aligned and mutually reinforcing. Effective policy integration helps avoid contradictions and synergies that enhance the impact of CSA interventions. Strong governance systems provide the framework for the successful implementation of CSA, ensuring that policies are designed and executed in a way that is inclusive, effective, and sustainable. 6. Conclusion: building a supportive policy and governance landscape for CSA. The successful adoption of climate-smart agriculture depends heavily on the creation of enabling policies, robust governance structures, and sustainable financing mechanisms. Policymakers must integrate CSA into national development plans, align policies across sectors, and ensure that both local and global governance systems support the transition to climate-smart agricultural systems. The future of CSA will require global cooperation, policy innovation, and a commitment to building resilient and sustainable agricultural systems that can thrive in the face of climate change. With the right policies in place, CSA can help ensure food security, promote sustainable development, and contribute to the global effort to mitigate and adapt to climate change. Chapter 15: Community Involvement and Stakeholder Engagement in Climate-Smart Agriculture. The success of climate-smart agriculture, CSA, depends not only on technological innovations and government policies, but also on the active involvement of local communities and the engagement of multiple stakeholders. Effective CSA practices are inherently local, meaning they must be tailored to the unique needs, conditions, and knowledge of farmers and communities. This chapter explores the importance of community involvement and stakeholder engagement in ensuring the success and scalability of CSA practices, emphasizing the role of farmers, local organizations, and other actors in fostering resilient and sustainable agricultural systems. 1. The importance of community-based approaches. Agriculture is at the heart of many communities, especially in rural areas where farming is the primary livelihood. A community-based approach to CSA ensures that solutions are not only scientifically sound, but also culturally appropriate, economically viable, and aligned with local priorities. Involving communities in the design, implementation, and monitoring of CSA practices leads to better outcomes and more sustainable changes. Benefits of community-based approaches. Local knowledge integration. Farmers and local communities possess invaluable traditional knowledge about weather patterns, soil conditions, crop management, and local ecosystems. Integrating this knowledge with modern scientific research can lead to more effective and adaptable CSA solutions. Ownership and empowerment. When communities are actively involved in the decision-making process, they are more likely to take ownership of the practices and strategies being implemented. This leads to greater commitment and willingness to adopt new methods. Enhanced resilience. Community-based approaches foster social cohesion and solidarity, which are critical for coping with the impacts of climate change. Communities that collaborate and share resources can more effectively respond to extreme weather events, market fluctuations, and other challenges. By recognizing the expertise and agency of local communities, CSA initiatives are more likely to succeed and be sustained over the long term. 2. Stakeholder engagement, a multi-sectoral approach. CSA is a cross-cutting issue that involves multiple sectors, including agriculture, environment, water management, health, and energy. Stakeholder engagement is essential for ensuring that all relevant sectors and actors work together toward common goals. Engaging a diverse range of stakeholders also facilitates the identification of synergies and opportunities for collaboration that can enhance the impact of CSA initiatives. Key stakeholders in CSA. Farmers and farming communities. As the primary implementers of CSA practices, farmers are the most critical stakeholders. Their involvement is essential in identifying the most effective and feasible strategies for climate adaptation and mitigation. Empowering farmers through education, training, and access to resources is key to the success of CSA. Local governments. Local authorities play a vital role in creating supportive policies and providing essential services to farmers. By engaging local governments, CSA initiatives can ensure that policies are implemented at the grassroots level, and resources are allocated where they are most needed. Non-governmental organizations, NGOs. NGOs often act as intermediaries, helping to connect farmers with technical expertise, financial resources, and policy advocacy. NGOs can also assist with capacity building and raise awareness about CSA practices in rural communities. Private sector. The private sector, including agribusinesses, technology providers, and financial institutions, can offer valuable resources, technology, and funding for CSA. Public-private partnerships can help scale up CSA efforts by bringing together innovation and investment. Academic and research institutions. Research organizations play a key role in generating knowledge about climate change impacts and effective agricultural solutions. Collaboration with farmers ensures that research findings are translated into practical, locally appropriate solutions. International organizations. International bodies, such as the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, and the World Bank, provide policy guidance, technical support, and financial assistance to CSA efforts. These organizations help facilitate global cooperation and knowledge sharing. A multi-sectoral inclusive approach ensures that CSA efforts are aligned with the needs and capacities of all stakeholders, leading to more integrated and sustainable solutions. 3. Participatory approaches to CSA design and implementation. Participatory approaches involve stakeholders, particularly local farmers, in every stage of the CSA process, from problem identification and design to monitoring and evaluation. These approaches foster transparency, accountability, and community ownership. Key principles of participatory approaches. Co-designing solutions. In a participatory process, farmers, communities, and stakeholders work together to design CSA interventions that are tailored to local needs and realities. This ensures that the strategies are relevant, feasible, and culturally appropriate. Inclusive decision-making. Ensuring that all voices, particularly those of marginalized groups, e.g., women, youth, and indigenous communities, are included in decision-making is vital. This inclusivity ensures that CSA solutions benefit all members of the community and help address equity issues. Capacity building. One of the key components of participatory approaches is strengthening the capacity of local communities to engage in decision-making and implement CSA practices. This can include training in sustainable farming techniques, financial literacy, and climate risk management. Knowledge sharing. Farmers often learn best through exchange with peers. Creating platforms for sharing knowledge, such as farmer-to-farmer networks or community workshops, enables the spread of best practices and builds trust among stakeholders. Participatory approaches enhance the relevance, acceptance, and sustainability of CSA practices, ensuring that the solutions are grounded in the lived experiences of those most affected by climate change. 4. Building partnerships for long-term success. Building strong, long-term partnerships between stakeholders is essential for scaling up CSA efforts and ensuring their sustainability. Collaboration between local communities, governments, the private sector, and international organizations can amplify the impact of CSA initiatives and facilitate access to resources and support. Examples of successful partnerships. Farmer cooperatives. In many regions, farmers have formed cooperatives to pool resources, share knowledge, and increase their bargaining power. These cooperatives can also provide access to bulk purchasing of inputs, collective marketing, and shared irrigation or storage infrastructure. Public-private partnerships, PPPs. Collaboration between the public and private sectors can drive innovation and investment in CSA. For example, private companies can develop climate-resilient seeds or new irrigation technologies, while governments can create policies that incentivize their adoption. International collaborations. Global partnerships, such as those fostered by the Global Alliance for Climate-Smart Agriculture, GACSA, enable countries and organizations to share knowledge and resources. Collaborative research projects and international funding mechanisms help ensure that CSA practices are effective and scalable. By building and maintaining strong partnerships, stakeholders can ensure that CSA initiatives are not only successful, but also have a lasting impact. 5. Gender equality and social inclusion in CSA. It is essential to recognize the critical role of gender and social inclusion in the implementation of CSA. Women, youth, and marginalized groups often face unique challenges related to climate change, yet they also possess vital knowledge and skills that can contribute to climate resilience. Key strategies for promoting gender equality and inclusion. Empowering women farmers. Women in rural areas are often responsible for much of the labor in agriculture, including planting, harvesting, and managing household food security. Supporting women through training, access to resources, and decision-making processes can lead to more sustainable agricultural practices. Involving youth in CSA. Young people have the potential to be powerful agents of change. Providing education and training in CSA, along with access to land, finance, and technology, can help them build more resilient agricultural systems and create opportunities for the next generation of farmers. Supporting indigenous knowledge. Indigenous communities often have valuable knowledge about sustainable land management practices. Ensuring that their perspectives are included in CSA interventions promotes cultural preservation and supports the adoption of more locally adapted solutions. Addressing gender and social inclusion ensures that CSA benefits are equitably distributed, and that all members of society have the opportunity to contribute to and benefit from climate-smart agricultural practices. 6. Monitoring, evaluation, and feedback loops. For CSA initiatives to be successful and scalable, it is essential to have effective monitoring and evaluation (M&E) systems in place. These systems help track progress, assess the effectiveness of interventions, and provide feedback to improve implementation. Involving communities in M&E ensures that the process is participatory and locally relevant. Key components of M&E for CSA. Participatory monitoring. Community members can be trained to monitor climate impacts, resource use, and the effectiveness of CSA practices. This allows for real-time feedback and empowers local stakeholders to take an active role in the success of the initiative. Data collection and analysis. Effective M&E systems require the collection of accurate data on agricultural productivity, climate risks, and environmental health. This data can be used to adjust practices and policies as necessary. Adaptive management. Based on monitoring data, CSA interventions should be regularly adjusted to account for changing conditions, such as shifts in climate patterns or the emergence of new challenges. An adaptive management approach ensures that CSA initiatives remain effective and relevant. Continuous monitoring and feedback mechanisms help communities and stakeholders identify challenges and opportunities for improvement, ensuring that CSA practices are continually refined and optimized. 7. Conclusion. Empowering communities for a climate-resilient future. Community involvement and stakeholder engagement are integral to the success of climate-smart agriculture. By empowering local communities, integrating their knowledge and needs, and fostering collaboration among diverse stakeholders, CSA can contribute to building more resilient, equitable, and sustainable agricultural systems. The future of agriculture will depend on collective action, working together across sectors and communities to tackle the challenges of climate change and ensure food security for generations to come. Epilogue. Building a resilient and sustainable agricultural future. Climate change poses a monumental challenge to agriculture, threatening food security, livelihoods, and ecosystems worldwide. As the global climate continues to shift, The agricultural sector must transform to not only adapt to new climatic realities, but also to play a role in mitigating the causes of climate change. Climate-smart agriculture, CSA, offers a powerful framework for achieving these dual goals, building resilience to climate impacts while reducing agriculture's contribution to global warming. Throughout this book, we have explored the key dimensions of climate change and its impact on agriculture, highlighting the challenges and opportunities presented by this global crisis. From the need for scientific innovations and adaptive farming practices to the importance of policy support, financial mechanisms, and community engagement, the journey toward a climate-resilient agricultural future requires comprehensive action on multiple fronts. The path forward. The future of agriculture lies in the widespread adoption of climate-smart practices that integrate sustainability, productivity, and climate resilience. However, scaling up CSA requires a concerted effort from governments, international organizations, the private sector, and most importantly, the farmers themselves. The success of CSA hinges on creating an enabling environment where all stakeholders, from local communities to global institutions, work together to foster innovation, share knowledge, and mobilize resources. The chapters in this book have demonstrated that there is no one-size-fits-all solution to the complex issue of climate change in agriculture. Solutions must be localized, tailored to the specific needs, conditions, and knowledge of the communities that will implement them. By integrating traditional knowledge with modern technology, fostering inclusive decision-making, and building strong partnerships across sectors, we can ensure that CSA practices are effective, equitable, and scalable. Policy and governance, key enablers of change. Policies play a critical role in shaping the agricultural landscape, influencing everything from land use to resource management. As we have seen, climate-resilient policies must be integrated into national development plans, ensuring that agricultural practices align with climate adaptation and mitigation goals. Effective governance structures are essential for ensuring the equitable and inclusive implementation of these policies, with a focus on community participation and multi-stakeholder collaboration. Governments must create an enabling policy environment that incentivizes the adoption of CSA practices, supports research and development, and facilitates access to climate finance. In doing so, they can empower farmers to embrace innovative solutions that enhance food security, protect natural resources, and contribute to global climate goals. Technological innovation and research. Technological innovation will be central to the success of CSA. From drought-resistant crop varieties to water-efficient irrigation systems and advanced data-driven decision tools, the agricultural sector has access to a wide range of tools that can help mitigate climate risks and increase productivity. However, the effective application of these technologies requires capacity building and knowledge sharing at all levels. Governments, research institutions, and the private sector must invest in the development of climate-smart technologies and ensure that they are accessible to smallholder farmers, particularly in developing countries. Partnerships between the public and private sectors can help accelerate the development and scaling of these innovations. Community engagement, the heart of transformation. Ultimately, the success of CSA depends on the active engagement of local communities. Farmers and rural communities are the primary actors in the implementation of CSA practices, and their knowledge, needs, and preferences must be at the center of any solution. Empowering farmers through education, training, and access to resources is key to ensuring the adoption of climate-smart practices. Involving marginalized groups such as women, youth, and indigenous communities in CSA initiatives is essential for creating inclusive and equitable agricultural systems. These groups often have unique knowledge and perspectives that can enhance the effectiveness of CSA practices. Their active participation ensures that the benefits of CSA are broadly shared and that no one is left behind in the transition to a climate-resilient future. The role of global cooperation. Climate change is a global challenge that requires coordinated international action. Through frameworks like the Paris Agreement and the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, countries around the world have committed to addressing the impacts of climate change and ensuring sustainable food systems. Global cooperation and knowledge sharing are essential for scaling up CSA and ensuring that all regions, particularly the most vulnerable, have the resources and support they need. International organizations, financial institutions, and global initiatives such as the Global Alliance for Climate-Smart Agriculture, GACSA, play a critical role in facilitating collaboration and providing the technical and financial support necessary to implement CSA at scale. By working together, we can build a more resilient and sustainable global food system. A vision for the future. The vision for the future is one where agriculture thrives in harmony with the environment, contributing to food security, climate resilience, and economic growth. A future in which farmers can adapt to changing climatic conditions while reducing the environmental footprint of their practices. A future in which innovation, policy, community engagement, and global cooperation converge to create a sustainable agricultural system that benefits all people and the planet. To reach this future, we must act urgently with determination and collaboration to implement CSA practices at scale. This will require concerted efforts at all levels, from local farmers adopting new techniques, to governments creating enabling policies, to international organizations supporting global cooperation. By doing so, we can secure a sustainable, equitable, and resilient agricultural future for generations to come. The journey towards a sustainable agricultural future is complex, but it is possible with the right combination of science, policy, community action, and global collaboration. Together, we can build a food system that supports both people and the planet in the face of climate change. About the author. Olubusayo Aina is the director of LAREINS, an energy, climate, ESG, and sustainability training institution. He is also a professor with the Global Humanistic University, GHU, in Anguilla. Olubusayo has a PhD in energy economics and finance.